If you're here already, I started this 10 minutes early just because it's a new time, and people surprisingly hit me up saying, dude, I missed it, and that bothers them, which is very flattering. So I started it earlier so people have time to get in, get the notification on their phone, things like that. Yo, people are here. Bell Gang. Word up. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know if you guys just heard me say it, but just going to take a few minutes and, I mean, maybe you just heard me say this, but since it's a new time, I want to give people a second to get in and stuff. Like I just said, people get mad when they miss it, which is awesome. That means people care. So you're probably going to hear me like setting up and just moving some stuff around right now. Very professional, as always. Get some light in here. How you guys doing? It's St. Patrick's Day. Yo, nice. Bought a sketchbook. Sketching what I see daily. Yo, people should like send me drawings they do and stuff like that. I'm definitely down to check it out. Let's see, what else do I need to get going over here? Damn, you have chickens? That's sick. I'm jealous. I'm just getting things together over here. Alright. I gotta set it up so I have OBS open. Yeah, so initially I plan on this just being a waiting screen, but, you know, I don't need to like pretend that I'm not here. But I'm just going to be getting set up for a minute. Let me tear this page off. Got a sketchbook and realized how bad I am. Yeah, man. I mean, when you start out, you know, that's how it is. I mean, it's like if you bought a violin, like, you know what I mean? Probably the first like 100 times you play it, it's not really gonna go how you thought. I'm stoked people are actually drawing stuff though. People hit me up and like tell me like, hey, I got a sketchbook like someone just did, or like, oh, I'm gonna like start painting, and that's really tight. It's like the whole reason why I'm doing this, right? Is this lamp on? No, it's not. So profesh. It's kind of cooler if things aren't professional though, right? Who wants to be professional? Nobody. Alright. Light. There we go. Nice. I have all these lights in a very like unintuitive setup. How close are we to 7 right now? Oh, we got a lot of time. Cool. Nice music stuff. Hell yeah, dude. Honestly, yeah, I would just like to see us all like up the creativity situation, however that manifests. A lot of writing. You know, Twitter naturally attracts people that are into writing because it's a writing format. But we should get some other stuff going on too. Throw on some gloves. Hell yeah, dude. Someone just said doing it to help with issues, give me something to think about during the whole outbreak. Yeah, man. You know, actually, it's really funny. That was even before I got into art, like when I still thought art was like kind of lame. I don't know if I really thought that, but I didn't really know how cool it was. I had one of those like stereotypical art teachers who was like an older woman and kind of like neo hippie style. Was my mic on? Wait, let me just make sure this is the right mic. Yeah. Sorry if you have headphones on. I'm about to tap the mic right now. Cool. Yeah, I had this art teacher who we had like these really stressful tests at my school, and this is like back in high school when you would get stressed out about stuff like that. Maybe people still do if you're in college or whatever. And yeah, we just did these like abstract paintings, and she was like, "Yeah, it'll like make you feel better, you know." And it was really interesting just because at that time, like I never would have thought of doing anything serious with art at all. But I think everyone in the classroom kind of had this reaction of like, "Oh yeah, wow, that was like really surprisingly cathartic and stuff." And yeah, doing art definitely has that effect. Definitely. Getting the brushes. Cool. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure I have everything set up, because if I start looking at the chat, then I lose track of time. Oh, I got water over here. Right. Boom. Let's see what else needs to go down right now. I think we're almost good. Just organize these paints while I talk to you. I told people 7, so we'll start at 7, but we can like talk about whatever before then. Yeah, someone said I write, but drawing, sketching feels differently creatively. I'm reading this. Oh, I'm reading this like you guys can't see it right in the chat. So unnecessary. Yeah, it's more like an abstract part of your brain, soul and stuff. Yeah, man. That's something I tried to explain it once on here really quickly, and after I explained it, I was like, I really should have either not said that or just gone more into it. But yeah, there's something about the format of art where you can do something that is abstract, like a blue square, or something that is representational, like you can paint an apple that's on your desk. And there's something about straddling that line and going back and forth between those worlds, I feel like, of pure ideas and then actual, reality around you. It really opens your brain up in like a different way. Man, I'm loving these birds. I should probably show you guys at some point, but it's also cool if you have to like conceptualize the studio that I'm in, and then it just exists in your mind. But I've mentioned it so many times, but this like huge family of like robins or something is nesting in my carport. And I don't know if they're doing it or if it's just naturally happening, but part of like the plastic up there, I don't know if it's plastic, like house siding or whatever it is like falling down and it's opening up more space. And I'm not going to do it, but I really want to put a camera up into the carport and see what's going on over there, because I hear like a symphony of birds. It's got to be like a Mormon bird who has like 20 kids or something. I don't think they like share space like a condo, but whoever's up there has like the spot. It's got to be the most like pimp bird. I'm hooking him up in the bird pickup artist game. It's gonna bring like ladybirds back there. They're gonna be like, damn, this is a sick spot, because it is. Oh, GoPro, yeah. Avon Earl? Who is that? Should I know who that is? Let's Google it. We got time. We have 2 minutes, actually. We don't have that much time. But I'll search it anyway. Why not? Dun, 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 dun. He's an artist. I don't know if I know who this is. There's no pictures on his Wikipedia. That's weird. How are you going to be an artist and not have pictures on there? I mean, he probably didn't write it. Oh, I've seen this guy's stuff before. It's pretty dope. Man. I gotta look at it a little bit more, but it's good. It's very like, this is like the good kind of like illustration, right? This is like the very successful like pictorial illustration. It's really cool. Okay, I posted it on Twitter. I just want to make sure I don't forget something. Yeah, Mormon Bird Gang. Yeah. Did I ever check out Doug Tenenbaum? No, I haven't checked that out yet. People have told me to check out a lot of stuff. It's funny because I've been quarantined, right? But that's just like my normal life, and yeah, all I've been doing is like waking up, and then honestly, I just hit the ground running in the studio and see how much work I can get done every day. It's like literally my entire life. I'm not complaining at all, but The most I've done, like, not directly working on stuff is, like, I played Grand Theft Auto 2 for, like, a few hours the other day. And even that felt, like, very, what's the word? Decadent. I was like, whoa, playing Grand Theft Auto 2 right now. All right, I'm just going to get the focusing situation going. Where's settings? Properties? Yeah. I feel like if you've been watching, like, all these, been watching from the beginning, I think the manual focus is way better than the autofocus. I think that definitely ended up being the case. Hold up, I just want to make sure I have that open. Okay. Figure video. Just gonna make sure everything is perfect, and we'll do this. Let's see. Actually, when I focus the camera, I normally just need something that's like kind of detailed on screen, so I can just make sure. If you're looking at the screen right now, it's gonna be like taking your glasses on and off. I'm really sorry. To go eye doctor mode for a second. All right, I think that's the spot. We'll see. I'm gonna apply that. Cool. I'm gonna move this over. Just wanna make sure I can see the chat. Okay, I'm almost there. It's 7. It's about that time. Autofocus was a little off the goop. That's a good phrase for it. Oh, you know what time it is. It's 7 right now. That means it's that time. All right. What is up, everyone? Feels good. I love doing this, actually. I wasn't sure how I was going to take to it, but I really like doing it a lot. So thank you for being here. If you are here checking this out right now. Saw someone in the chat mentioned it. Painted Worlds is the house band for the show. Check it out on Spotify, Bandcamp. Painted Worlds. He actually didn't even ask me to say that, but I kind of just like saying it every time now. You can probably hear me looking for something around my desk, and I found it, and now we are good to go. So how's everyone's St. Patrick's Day going? I hope it's going well. It's a sacred day in many senses. Let's get this out of here. So, yeah, I just want to jump right in. I guess I kind of have to give like the qualifier every time I do this, but if this is your first time watching it, I'm kind of still feeling it out. I'll probably be saying that like 100 episodes in, but whatever. I like to give a little caveat there. And in terms of feeling it out, I was thinking that it's St. Patrick's Day, and I was thinking, you know, I did this stream on Saturday. Not this stream, but I did a stream on Saturday. And I thought that while people are quarantined and like stuck inside and everything, it would be cool to do just like a very chill like live stream format kind of thing. Like I know I'm live streaming right now, but it's kind of different if you like really hit the live stream format and you're really like just chilling, talking to people in the chat and stuff like that. I feel like what I'm going for here is almost like half that. Like it's like 35% live stream, but it's also like a video someone could watch later. But on Saturday, I just did straight live stream, just chilling, and it was really dope. I'm probably going to do it again on Friday or Saturday if you want to check it out. We were just like looking at books, and like I was able to pull up some stuff on my computer. I didn't paint or anything, not cheating on this stream with that stream. But I was thinking that since it's St. Patrick's Day, I was like, well, the looking at books thing was kind of tight. And we're not going to only look at books. I mean, that's not that cool. But I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit. Because I wanted to get my Irish on. And I was like, how can I get my Irish on? Technically, I do have Irish ancestry. But I don't like to LARP and be like, I'm part Irish. I feel like if I was going to say that, I kind of have to like, I don't know. Well, I was going to say I have to go there, but I actually have been there. But I don't know. My family's not Irish. I just like my mom's side of the family is like incidentally, like largely, partially Irish. So I don't like the stolen valor of the Irish. I know they've been through a lot, but I do have a little bit of that going on. And I was thinking how I could incorporate that on St. Patrick's Day. I felt like it was like nice that it was the same day as the stream going on. But I found this book on my shelf, and I actually just got it really recently. I got it like a few weeks ago, I guess, at some thrift store. Maybe less than that, actually. So I thought before we jump into painting world, we could just quickly like take a look at this. I don't know how much I'm going to look at this right now. Not like too long. I want this to be just like a little prelude before we start painting. I don't know if I'm going to paint something out of this. That seems a little bit like direct, but I don't know. Let's see how it goes. In case people don't know, this is a cool little, very fitting, like, not obscure, but not necessarily the most well-known bit of Irish history we can go through right now. There's this manuscript called the Book of Kells. Boom, you can see it up here. And it's easily the most well-preserved, what's the academic word I'm looking for? Dope, aggressively fresh, Irish, illuminated manuscript that exists today. What is really interesting, I was going to say it's cool, but it's not really that cool actually. So you can see from the cover here, I'm not like not opening this to build up suspense. I just think the cover is like really awesome. There was a whole culture of painters making works of art like this. And let's poke in here. And unfortunately, it was mostly destroyed by the Vikings. When I went to Ireland and I went to Trinity College and I saw this book in person, actually, the Book of Kells, which sounds really awesome. You're like, wow, I saw the real one in person. And it was awesome, but the thing is they have it open to one page at a time. So whatever day you happen to go, that's just like the page you'll see. And in here, there's a lot of like dope stuff. I actually haven't even looked at this book yet, so it's definitely going to be interesting. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so you go and there's one page open, and sometimes it's just writing. So I went a few days, and when it's just writing, I mean, that's cool. I'm into calligraphy and stuff, but it's cooler when it's one of like the crazy awesome pages. Yeah, and you can see the design situation we got going here. If we really get into it, I'll like bring the camera down a little bit. And yeah, there was a whole culture of, perfect, I'll pause on this page for a second. So there's a whole culture of making these illuminated manuscripts, these illuminated gospels, and I was going to say books of the Bible. I don't know if it's actually just the Gospels or what. I'm actually not really sure. The Book of Kells might be just the Gospels. I'm not totally sure. And this culture existed in Ireland. And the problem is when the Vikings came through, they really, really, really fucked it up a lot. They just destroyed the whole situation. I mean, there's pretty much nothing more fragile than being a monk who is making stuff like this in terms of like the social fabric that you need to be embedded into. I mean, I guess you could say the same for any art. It's like having an orchestra. To have an orchestra, you have to have a pretty stable situation because, the third cellist needs to be able to go to this little store and get rosin and strings, and the flautist needs to be able to get her flute tuned, and she doesn't know how to make a flute, so they need a flute maker who had to, you need a whole crazy macro framework holding the orchestra in. That's kind of like what this stuff is. You need someone who's making paint, you need someone who's making the paper, you need someone who's doing all this stuff. And the Vikings came through and just totally fucked up the whole situation, and they destroyed a ton of these books. Of course, when you listen to anything about culture from those people, you have to naturally take into account the mythologizing or the, frankly, like exaggeration that would happen over time. So this book's from the 800s, right? It's a pretty long time ago. So we don't know exactly how many there were. We don't know exactly, what the situation was, in my opinion, because, a monk could say, oh, there were thousands of books like this, and, how do you know if that's true or not? But on the other hand, if this didn't exist, we probably would think the whole thing was, who would expect this kind of thing to come from Ireland? No offense, but I mean, without the physical record, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know because it wouldn't be there. And apparently the Vikings destroyed like a ton of books like this. I'm going to bring the camera down while I'm talking right now. Actually, I didn't know this before I went to Ireland, but someone could fact check me on this. I think this is the case. that there's not really a record of Vikings wearing those helmets with the horns on them that you see in like Wagner operas and depictions of Vikings that come from that. I think it actually came from times when they were coming through Northern Europe, and I was told it was Irish artists, but who knows who it really was, started depicting them with these horns on their helmets like devil horns, because to them they were like satanic, just coming through and like destroying all this stuff. And in Ireland, they actually have these like super tall towers. It's actually just like some of the towers I paint, where it's like a really, really thin rectangle coming up to a tiny point. There's a little window on top. And apparently people would just go up there and hide from these like raiding Vikings. And I don't know exactly the story of how this one wasn't destroyed, but it wasn't. If anyone has kids, or actually even if you don't have kids, it's a really awesome movie if you're stuck inside. There's a movie called The Secret of Kells, very appropriate for St. Patrick's Day, but also other days. And it kind of is based on the Book of Kells. I mean, it's based on the Book of Kells, but they made it into like it's the format of a kid's movie, but adults could enjoy it also. I watched it, I thought it was awesome. And the art is really, really, really good. I definitely recommend that. Actually, yeah, after the stream, if you want to check it out, it's called Book of Kells. It's called Secret of Kells, The Secret of Kells. Anyway, I just want to take a little look through this because, yeah, I really think this is so fascinating. This is perfect. I'm going to bring the camera down further. Let's get this going. Show it to the people. Boom. And let's see. So with the lighting, something you guys might find interesting, it's a physics thing. The angle of, the angle of reflection equals the angle of incidence. The way the light is bouncing into the camera, I have to like account for that and make sure the lighting angles are all good. Cool. All right, this rules. This is a perfect. Like I said, I haven't really looked at this book yet, so this is awesome for me. So yeah, actually, when I used to be in art school and I used to be after that living in the city, I had a lot of books like this around. Not this one, but books like this. And I would often show people things like this and ask them to guess what culture it came from. And I would get the funniest answers. Sometimes people would say like Africa or Persian or Asian or something. You really can't really tell where this visual vibe comes from. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it in even more. Let's see how close we can get it. Let's see. That means I have to like manually focus it. Not the biggest deal. Oh, whoa. Oh, just had it. Could turn on autofocus just for this part. Should I do that? Let's see. Yeah. Perfect. Wow, that looks awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can see here, it's this kind of like, sometimes they call the full pages carpet pages. I always think of it as like tapestry-esque, where everything is super woven together and packed in. And you get these kind of designs up here. You can see this guy, and he becomes this like line over here. You can see the calligraphy. The calligraphy is really beautiful. I have been looking at stuff like this for a really long time. As an illustrator, illuminated manuscripts was something that I really gravitated towards. I just thought it was really awesome. I love the archetype of taking like a sacred text and illuminating it and taking it to the next level as an illustrator, giving it this like visual flavor. So I've been looking at this stuff for a while, but I don't know what people think of when they think of Irish art. I mean, we've all seen like the pendants and like t-shirts from like the Dropkick Murphys, honestly. Things like that have these kind of like knotworks, but this is really like, the real deal. Over here, this is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting flavor. We have this scene of the, it was on the cover, but we'll look at it anyway, of the Virgin Mary with the infant Christ. And I don't know, man, the style is just so interesting. It's almost like Byzantine, medieval in a way. Part of what I think I respond to here is the colors. This is actually a good example. So it has this green that's on the infant Christ over here. This green, I don't know the materials that they were using. I'm more familiar with like Central Asian and like, oil painting and other physical mediums where I could talk about where the colors actually come from. But this kind of green, I always call this a malachite green. Malachite is a stone, and it's exactly this hue of green. And I think seeing this a lot, they use this color all the time in Tibetan art. They use it all the time in medieval art, if they have the color around. And if you are on your phone or computer, you can pull up, you can just Google malachite, like Malachite. I think that's it. Anyway, it's just a shiny rock that's exactly this color. And I find it just imparts like such a unique flavor to the overall color scheme. There's something about it. Maybe it's that, I feel like if you thought of the color of like sea green, like blue green, it feels like a very unnatural color, to me at least. I don't know, if you're going through like paint chips at Home Depot, there's something about it that feels very artificial. But when you see it in the context with all the other dark stones and dark colors, I don't know, there's something about it, and I think that definitely really influenced my palette. We'll get that going in a minute, actually, when I start painting. Someone said, oh, also I'm still balancing out like how to look at the chat while I'm talking to you guys and not like zone out looking at it, but also keep this going. Yeah, someone said the facial expressions look odd. Yeah, they definitely do. They definitely do. They have a really, really weird flavor. There's no two ways about it. I also love the writing here. So actually you can see the pages on the edge over here. I talked about this maybe in the first episode really briefly, but this is a type of paper called vellum. And they would do this, it's actually the skin of an animal. They would take an animal's skin and turn it into this like papery leather, and that's what these books would be made of. So it's really awesome, you know, as long as Vikings don't come through, that's basically going to last forever, right? And you can see these like really beautiful flourishes. I should get some calligraphy going. Maybe we should do it today. I don't know. Didn't really plan for that, but that would be kind of dope. And you can see these letters pop up and they fill in the colors here. It's just such a beautiful style. So awesome. Yeah, it's crazy rich. And also the writing, I think also part of what I respond to about looking at this kind of thing is you can see that the artist is at once both really skilled, but also, I don't know, not winging it, but being willing to, I don't know, play isn't even really the right word. Just be willing to like let it happen. Like, see, he was writing, and then he got down to the bottom of the page here, and then just, you know, adopted these like nice big swooping letters at the bottom. I guess you could use the word improvisation, but I don't know, that has a kind of like, frankly, like digging around, like jazz feel to it. So I wouldn't really use that term, but whatever. There's also all these really interesting animals. The animal style is really, really interesting. It actually says this wolf was embellished in the 16th century, but that probably means that there was a drawing like this and someone came back in and like built it up. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of reminiscent of like cartoons in a way, like these faces with the big eyes, the way the legs are drawn in. There's something about it that's just like really charming. Charming is like a really good word for this. And then you get this kind of thing where, I don't know, man. How would you even describe the flavor of this? It's so unique. It's so unique. The kind of patterns you get in here, the way the animals are drawn. I don't really use the knot work ever in my own art, honestly. I feel like the knot work, it almost, if anyone sees it in anything, it just screams like Irish, Dropkick Murphys t-shirt. Not in a bad way, but for me personally, I felt like it's almost like when you add, it's like if you add something to your cooking. Like, I was talking about with my wife the other day about like beets. You know, if you add like beets into what you're making, it becomes like a beet thing. It's actually a perfect analogy. That's what I feel like about the knot work. If you add knot work in just a little bit, boom, it like becomes the primary flavor. So I'm not putting it down at all. Obviously, I love it. If other people feel like, you know, you wanted to take it and do something with it, you definitely should. There's even books online where you can learn about making these like really tight patterns and stuff. Let's look at a few more pages and then we'll dive into something. I feel like this is pretty cool and it's insanely appropriate because it's St. Patrick's Day. Oh, look at this. How good is this right now? Oh, so good. You're tuned in. Who else is looking at stuff like this right now, guys? Just us. So yeah, you can see over here the way the animals are incorporated in, I find really interesting, but also just the way the animals are drawn. It's this almost like aggressively like 2D way of seeing it, and you can actually see, so I don't know, is it big enough? Oh, you can definitely see. Here, let me get a little, let me get something to point with. Perfect. Just to get really tight with the pointing. So you can see the tongue right here comes out. That's this like red looping around. But if you can see, come down a little bit more. Just making sure I don't spill anything on my desk. Cool. This is actually the head of another animal. This fleshy shape over here, you can see the 1, 2 eyes. It has its nose. And this blue thing is another animal. And there's another animal head right over here. It almost looks like a comic strip, actually, the way the head is rendered. And then these blue animals come around. Here's the head of another animal. Someone said, is it a dragon? I actually don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a feline head. This type of head, when it's rendered this way, is normally like a feline head. Let's see. It must say somewhere around here. Oh, it says right here. Oh, yeah. It says detail of a lion head. Nice. So this is a lion head. I don't know. Does it look like a lion to you? Not really to me, but if you're living in Ireland, you probably never saw a lion before, so whatever. So yeah, let's do a few more pages of this. This is awesome. The way the heads come out, I find really cool. You can see this head over here. And also just, I don't know, every culture has its own sacred art flavor. That's one thing that initially drew me to sacred art, even when I was just, you could say, toying around with mysticism and stuff like that. But you can see down over here, Just the flavor is like super unique. I don't know. I'm kind of like repeating myself, but yeah, every culture, that's what I was saying. Every culture has its own sacred art flavor. And like I was saying, that's something that intrigued me initially, was that it almost is like the fruit of every culture is embodied in whatever its sacred art is, whether it's, Islamic art making like crazy tiles and geometric patterns and stuff like that, or I mean, any culture, African culture making, not African culture, African cultures, of course, making like masks and statues and stuff like that. Anywhere. You can think of anywhere in the world, and kind of the fruit of that culture, in my opinion, is partially their sacred art. I mentioned before the idea of like carpet pages. Let's see, I always feel like the camera's going to fall, but it's actually a pretty good camera. Nice. These like carpet pages. That's basically what these are called. Sometimes these will be dropped into the Gospels where it's the first like occurrence of a word. Oh, perfect. It's the next page. Oh man. Okay. Maybe that's where we'll cut it off. Maybe we'll cut it off at the next page, and then we'll get into like painting or something. But it's all pretty tight. We'll look at a few more pages. I feel like it's pretty dope. Yeah, the colors are dope. Everyone's feeling it. Anyway, yeah. So they have these pages. Sometimes they're called carpet pages. And you can see there's some writing in here, but the most famous one of them is this page called the Hi-Ro page. And maybe it's Cairo. I actually don't know. I only learn about things through reading, so whatever. I think it's called the Cairo page. So, yeah, obviously it is. So the most famous page is the Cairo page, and that's the first time Jesus' name occur in the Gospels. And it's the next page right here. Yeah. Oh, let's back it up a little bit so we can see the whole thing. Yeah, the detail's insane. Yeah, I don't know. I bet a bunch of people in the chat, maybe people in general, haven't seen a lot of this stuff before, so that's why we're going to look at it real quick. Yeah, this is insane. So I'm like 99% sure this is the Cairo page I was just talking about, where it's the first instance of Jesus' name in the gospel. So they drop it in like this, so you're just reading along, and then it's like, boom! And yeah, of course we're gonna zoom in. I mean, come on, let's just take a look real quick. Is that my hands blocking the light? Yeah, the lighting is perfect. Do I need to adjust? Yo, this looks insane. It's funny because I was thinking, I could save some of these images. Sorry if you're watching the screen, it's gonna be a little bit like eye doctor status while I just focus real quick. I was thinking, should I pull them up on my computer? And would they look better? But it actually looks even better when you have the camera looking at the page like this. Like, this is insane. Okay, I think it's focused enough. I think it's fine. Key is how it's pronounced. It's Kiro. Wow. Yeah, you're right, actually. You're so right. Yeah, whatever. I got a lot on my mind. Anyway, so yeah, the details are nuts. And you can see all the swirls come in. Actually, if we get in a little closer, let's just do it. Let's get in as close as possible. Cool. I'm playing with the autofocus. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Oh no, it's blurry. Oh no. I'm gonna have to honestly eventually get a second camera and then have that focused up for details, but we don't have that kind of money in the studio right now. That's not the situation right now. Anyway, yes, you can see there's swirls on swirls all coming in together around here. Even down over here, it's all these interlocking patterns and motifs laced together. I feel like I could get it more focused. Look away if you're sensitive to drunk vision for a second. Oh, there it is. I just want to get it perfect. It's worth it. We all came all the way here to the stream. All right, cool. That's good. Whatever. Oh, fuck. I don't know. I feel like it's not really happening. It's too blurry, and then we got to come back in. Yes! All right, cool. We'll take it. Anyway, yes, you can see all this interlocking stuff. Down over here, there's this guy looped around. Yeah, it's awesome. Let's back out a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking for St. Patrick's Day, it's pretty appropriate to just take a look at it. And then even the way this letter comes and tapers down into this whole situation, yeah, it almost looks better from far away. The other thing I really like about this artwork, maybe, soon we'll get painting, but is the way the natural forms. So, I mean, they're not natural really because they're perfect, but the curvaceous, the way the curved forms and everything bleed into and interlock with and interlace with the more geometric parts. There's something about the way these shapes are used In my mind, I call these like mega pluses. I don't know what to call it actually, or what the real term would be, but these like super pluses, and the way it intersects with the more geometric aspects of it is just so good. It's just so good. There's like angels in here and everything. If you want to pull it up, it's called the Cairo page, and yeah, even like down over here, like everything is just like completely and totally covered in like hyper detail. So yeah, for the stream today, I was thinking we would take something like this. I mean, even this is just great. It's just, and also the pink, the way the pink is used, it's a really, really interesting vibe. Perfect. And maybe we'll close out on this one, and then we'll start painting. Well, so we got that. So sometimes that's what you do if you want to get like inspired, right? You just look at something, kind of get the flavor in your eyes, and then jump into it. Yeah, and these color schemes also. So this is an interesting flip from what we were just looking at. Whenever I'm looking at things, subconsciously at least, I kind of like break down the color scheme a little bit. And this is what I would call, I should come up with a catchy term for it, but it's like an atypical manifestation of the primary colors. So you have red, you have the reds, you have some yellows and some blues. You can, if you're just starting out with art or even sketching or painting or anything like that, you can get really, really, really far with, it's very intentionally phrased what I'm saying, atypical manifestations of the primary colors. When people think of the primary colors, they think of like, a red Crayola marker and a blue one and a yellow one. But if you sophisticate it up a little bit, like this yellow is like a nice like golden yellow, the dark reds, even this is technically red, this kind of like unexpected blue, all the blue over here. It's always also really dependable. It's a really safe bet. I use it all the time in my artwork, and any atypical manifestation of the primary colors is totally a safe bet. And then yeah, it's perfect detail. We'll close out, and maybe we'll paint this. This is actually perfect. I'm focusing again. Just feel like I should announce it. Too blurry. All right, we're coming in. We're coming in. We're almost there. Something about the super close is kind of weird, but it's okay. It'll just be a second. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. You can see this guy is sitting here, and you can see, so this is his robe, this is his feet in a robe, but there's this like monster head that he's like interacting with. He might even be, I think he's grabbing its tongue, and then here it's almost like this Aztec like row back of hair. There's just something, that's actually what I wanted to mention before. It's almost like primal. There's something primal about it. And when I think about my own engagement with Christian art and modern spirituality and what I want to be doing, part of it I feel like is manifesting that primal is just such a good word for it, that like primal energy that's present in the mystical and religious experience. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I think that maybe part of why I feel that way is that people are really used to religious art, especially in the West. Like if the average person, if you said religious art, they really think of something like very staid, very formal. Formal is like the perfect word. I think the average person, if they thought of Christian art, religious art, would think of something really formal. And that's great. I mean, some of the formal, Renaissance paintings, you could describe them as formal for sure. Some of the best art in the entire world. But when I think of what I would like to bring to the table, or, really what I would like to grab the knob and maybe turn up a little bit, provide like an alternative perspective, is like the primal aspect to it. There's a very, sometimes religion is like in your face and comes from the heart in this way that I feel like is very expressed very well in these images. You really feel like, I don't know if we actually in general don't really know if like one person did one page or whatever. It's different for different manuscripts. Basically, I could go into it, but you have the feeling of like a guy or a few guys like sitting down and making this. I think the fact that it's on a page and like a book also gives it that. So yeah, it's like the difference of a different spectrum. Like oil painting is so like far removed from people's everyday experience. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but something that it looks like someone made it. You get these like little marks up here where it really just looks like someone drew it in. I don't know, there's something about it that religion feels like really closed off to people, I feel like. So maybe that's part of why I find this stuff really cool. Man, that was awesome. We could keep going through here, but I feel like we should. I feel like we got the flavor. Maybe we'll dig back in here. Maybe we'll dig back in here later. But I feel like we should get it going on some painting of our own. That was a really tight warm-up. As usual, the first time I checked the clock, it's going to be like an hour in. But, whatever. Maybe since we looked at that, maybe we're talking about primal stuff. We're talking about keeping it real for the people. you could probably hear my lamp. I was sitting at my desk. I'll tell this story. She'll never know. She'd probably be embarrassed, but she doesn't know you guys. My wife came in my room the other day and like she was joking about throwing something at me. This big like monkey stuffed animal that's in my room. It's not my, I mean it's mine, but I don't have it like for any weird reason. And she threw it at me and broke my lamp. So I have to get a new lamp. It still works, but I had to like tape it up. It's not really the best optics. But what are you going to do? She does a lot for me, so I'll just roll with it. All right, got the pen, and I'm looking for the ruler. I got that going on right here. Boom. All right, so, yeah, someone mentioned Secret of Kells in the chat. Yeah, dude, I was talking about that before. Highly recommend it, especially if anyone's quarantined with kids. There's also another movie that goes with the Book of Kells. I mean, it doesn't go with it. It's from the same studio. That's called Song of the Sea. Oh, that's Irish too. Nice. It's called Song of the Sea, and it's all about selkies. Selkies are a really cool mythological. I mean, maybe they're real, but I'll call them mythological. A mythological entity where it's a woman who. How exactly does it work? It's a woman who can put on a seal skin and transform into a seal and become a seal, and she lives her life like half seal, half woman. Not like a mermaid half and half, like half the time seal, half the time woman, let's say. And if she comes on land and like falls in love with a man, then I don't know if it's like one story that's like this or if this is what happens in general, but the guy can like take the seal skin and like hide it and keep her on land, because then she can't go become a seal if she doesn't have her like seal skin, right? So there's a lot of like stories and myths written around that where like, you know, this like normal mom like in the town or whatever will just be a normal woman, and then one day she'll like find the seal skin and go back to her like life as a seal. It's kind of what the movie's about. It doesn't ruin anything because it happens like right in the beginning. But it's called Song of the Sea. It's really dope. Actually, as long as we're, you know, trying to pump up the slight esoteric informational aspect of things, then what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the Selkie is kind of like the Irish version of what's called a kumiho in Korea or a kitsune in Japan. In Japan, there's like these fox women, and they can transform back and forth between being a fox and a woman, and just like the Selkie can lose her skin and then be like stuck as a human woman, the kitsune has like a similar situation where she's stuck as a fox and she's trying to become a woman, and there's a lot of different myths there. Like sometimes they have to like steal a bunch of men's livers, or make a man fall in love with them and then they can become a real woman. So lots of weird women, shape-shifty animal things going on. Whatever you think about that is up to you. Okay, so yeah, I don't really know. Like, okay, so unless if this is the first time watching this, also, I've generally tried not to like plan out the painting situation. I think it's cooler, honestly, if I don't. I say this every time, but I could, you know, have it all planned out, and then you're kind of just watching me do something where I already know what's going to happen. It's not really that exciting. But this time, I'm going to work off that guy that's sitting here talking to this like monster. I mean, that's chill. That is just a good time. And I'm going to make sure I don't get any paint on here. You know, it's kind of the top right corner of the book. It's like not really an ideal place, but it's cool. I can leave it there. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to grab my compass. Where is that? It's right here. And yeah, someone mentioned before the perfection of the spirals in the artwork is insane. Yeah, they were definitely using a compass like this. I've never actually personally myself studied the methods of spiral making with a tool like this. There are some really good books on it. Wooden Books, this publisher. I'm just gonna keep dropping stuff in case people are like quarantined and want to like crack out on cool stuff. Wooden Books is a really good publisher to look up books from. But they have a book that's called, maybe it's called The Compass and Ruler or The Compass and the Spiral, that's all about making spirals with compasses. And one of my friends used to have it, and it's a really, really awesome book. I never really delved into it too hard, but a lot of times if you see perfect things in art like that, there's a secret that you don't know about. And I would definitely encourage you to look at art from that perspective. When you see something that seems like superhuman, sometimes it is just superhuman. Sometimes people study their whole lives and that's just how it is. They can do something really awesome that you can't. But sometimes there is a secret going on. And like I said, if you don't know what it is, you can usually find out. Let's just start with like a circle. Let's just get it going here. Cool. And yeah, it's funny that I kind of settled on this image of this guy with this like dragon-y situation going on, because the whole time today I was thinking about what I was going to paint. I usually do think about this a little bit before, and I don't know, I feel like it should tie in with like the whole situation that's going on like outside right now, like pandemic style or faux pandemic, depending on what page you're on. And I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. I was like, something health related, but what am I going to paint? Like a kind of like health talisman or something? I mean, I guess that could have been cool. I did think about it. But something about confronting evil or, confronting like dark forces, I feel like is a little cooler. And in normal show fashion, I have no idea how this will go. In case you haven't seen this before, I like to kind of just do something I've never done before. Kind of the same spiel as before, but I could paint the same thing over and over and over, and it would be perfect, and everyone would be like, oh, it's pretty cool. But it's cooler if we don't really know how it's going to go down. Yeah, Quadrivium. Dude, Quadrivium is one of the best books you could ever buy in your entire life. Everyone listening to this, if spending like $40 is not like a huge deal for you right now, it's probably like 30, 40 bucks. I could not highly recommend enough buying the Quadrivium. If you just buy it right now, you will 200% not regret it. I could not be more certain of that. It's in the chat on the bottom right now. It's called the Quadrivium. You should definitely check that out. Okay, let's just start with this red. There was something about like the mineral pigment flavor of what we were just looking at that I feel like we should just start with this. And I'm going to kind of speed it up a little bit. Ideally, I wanted these videos to be like 90 minutes. I feel like that's a very like reasonable amount of time. But we already got like 40 minutes in, so let's just see how we can do it. Yeah, someone said a shame only a year of school is spent on geometry. Fact check, true. Allegedly, I don't really know if it's true or not, but above Plato's school, of the door of Plato's school, Plato's Academy, one of like the longest running educational institutions ever and one of the most important ones, it said something like, you shall not enter unless you've studied geometry or something like that. Yeah. Okay, cool. And let's just go for it. So I've noticed that the eyes, they kind of have this like teardroppy shape, and I'm just going to drop it in. Ugh, fucking love painting. So awesome. Honestly, the thrill of painting never diminishes or wears off, ever. I've been doing this for so long, and seriously, sometimes I'll just sit here and be like, wow, red, that's crazy. Let's try and reconfigure a little bit. I want you guys to be able to see the palette, but I also don't want to get my hand in the palette. Really, I should have it over here. Let's see. Let's do a little reconfiguring right now. I'm also mastering, like I said, looking at the chat and stuff, so I will take questions and stuff, but I'm kind of trying to casually like poke in every now and then. Oh, wow, this is so much better. Yeah, let no one ignorant of geometry enter here. That's what it says. Damn, I can hear the birds outside. This rules. And if you're starting to paint and stuff, one thing that I do sometimes that you'll kind of naturally pick up is when you pick up paint with the brush, if you twirl it, you can get more of a point. It's kind of narrating what I'm doing a little bit. So yeah, let's throw this in. And it's not really a yin-yang shape. It comes back a little bit more. Just so you know, I'm not like painstakingly, I can't even really see the image we were talking about before. I'm just kind of going from my memory, so. I feel like it's kind of lame if I'm looking at and copying something you guys can't see. I mean, is that cool? Not really. And there's something about the way the eyes are done also, where they're like these interlocking circles. That's not normally how I would do it, but let's see how that goes. I'm just going to leave space for the eye right here like this. Perfect. And this color, I also like to say what colors I'm using just in case people go to the art store. You know, also if you watch this a lot, you'll get familiar with talking about pigments rather than just colors. There is a difference. Pigment being the actual material that's making it this nice bright red color. Wow, this looks awesome on camera. Great. Get a little more light in here though. Yeah, it's actually good how it was. This is cadmium scarlet. So there's a there's a cadmium in here. Cadmium's like a heavy metal. It's actually really bad for you. Like I say, I think every time, that's mostly the reason why I'm wearing gloves right now. But that's what's giving it this super bright red color. And if you're keeping score, this is the warmest color in my palette. Again, if you want to sound cool talking about colors, temperature of colors, is really where that's going to happen, and this is the warmest color that I have. So this is like the hottest color. You can think of it that way. All the colors have like a temperature. Damn, that looks awesome. Okay. And let's see how I should do this. So the other thing that they have, the nose kind of like comes out of this upper face part. And let's just dig in on that. Here's where I have to make a decision. Do I want to make it light or dark? I kind of want to use this cerulean blue. My cerulean blue is kind of like hard, which really sucks. I have to order a new one, but let's see if we can make it work. If not, I'll just mix it with another blue. That sound you're hearing, so I'm making sure to get all the red off of the brush, just because it really matters if you have even like a tiny amount of that pigment left over there. This red you can see, it has some orange in it. That's another thing I'm going to try and get you guys to do if you're watching this a lot, is like being able to realize when colors are tending towards other colors on the color wheel. That's how you would say it also. I'd say this red is like tending towards orange. A little, not too much, but it is a little bit. If we pushed it a teeny bit more, it would almost like be an orange. And yeah, blue and orange are opposite colors on the color wheel. So it really makes a huge deal. If you get orange in your blue or blue in your orange, they like cancel each other out. And you can see I'm squeezing super hard right now. Ugh. I might have to let the cerulean blue dream go. So the thing is, most people never realize this. Actually, I've been with people who have literally been painting their like whole lives who never realized this. Maybe I'll do it right now. It would be kind of crazy to do it on the stream. Maybe we should though. So these paint tubes, right? Most people have seen these before. It's a paint tube. I'm intentionally turning it very slowly so you can just notice that you've definitely looked at something like this before. And here's the thing. So you see this bottom part? This is folded up like someone rolls a like a toothpaste, like a tube of toothpaste. That's exactly what this is like. So in the factory, they fill this from the back. The cap is screwed on, and they fill it from the back. So, like I said, I've been with people who have painted their whole lives, and I've done this with them, and they've been like, "Oh my god, I never realized that." But usually, you can actually just uncrinkle the back. So I'm just unfolding the back, and I might be able to just get some paint out of the back over here. I don't know. This one might be folded too shut. I could also cut it with a knife. I mean, how dedicated to getting cerulean blue are we right now? Am I going to cut into it on the stream? I could. I have a pocket knife right here. Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. In honor of St. Patrick. Okay, I'm going to cut into this shit right now. My friend's name is on this pocket knife, so I just want to make sure I don't accidentally show the front of it. No, we're good. And let's just do it. Yeah. And I'm just going to tear right into this. After the stream, just so people don't think I'm like wasting paint, I probably will. Oh yeah, perfect. Nice. I'll probably just put this, I don't know, maybe on like a Tupperware or something. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But it wasn't going to come out the top, so. Nice. Ever seen that before? Probably not. Boom. I feel really metal doing that right now. And I'm going to put the top over here so it doesn't like leak or anything over what I'm doing. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, you can see in here, I've had this paint for way too long. This is probably from when I used to work at an art store a really, really, really long time ago. So even after doing that, I can't really get too much out of it, but I think that looked pretty heavy metal, so. Oh, nice. All right, well now we have a huge pile of cerulean blue there. We'll do something with it. Okay, so I'm going to paint in this point over here. Let's do this. So yeah, you can see it's kind of like unideal working with something like this because it's very like, actually technically if you want to know what it is, the pigment is still here. So you're seeing this lump, but the binder and the water, there's also water in here, has started to like evaporate. So let's see, I don't know. I could have just used another color, but why not show the things that go wrong too? So what I'm doing is just working. So the binder in these paints, it's actually unique in terms of painting. The binder in these paints is water soluble. So for most paintings, if there's a painting in your house, paintings in museums even, if you spilled a cup of water on it, nothing would really happen. It would just get wet and you'd have to dry it because the binder in there is not water soluble. It's just a binder. So it's bound and then the water doesn't do anything to it. This binder is water soluble. So you can see as the water hits it, the binder releases. It lets go again and it becomes wet paint again. So theoretically, if I had a painting like this and you spilled a cup of water on it, it would bleed in a way that's like fundamentally different from other paintings. And that actually worked. The paint I'm using is called gouache, by the way, in case you have not watched this before. Okay. And what I'm thinking is that if I want to get that really crisp edge, I should use a smaller brush, but... Oh, I have a smaller brush right here. Perfect. That's perfect. Cool. Yeah, this is better. Cool. I always think of the paintbrushes as like weapons, honestly, and the big ones are like kind of like bazooka style, and then the smaller ones are like snipers, and there's like a range in between. So the way they normally do it, I have not really painted this kind of like creature or something before, but I'm not going to repeat myself, but I like to do things I haven't done before on here. So they have this kind of like snout going on, and then it kind of like comes down. Let's just do it. It kind of comes down like that, and then it comes back. I think I had it come down too much, but it's fine. We're just going to roll with it. And the mouth kind of like comes back. So the thing is, naturally, I feel like the way the animals are painted in the kind of like Irish illuminated manuscripts, they kind of have like a goofy feel to them, even like the scary ones. And I would like to try and like, I don't know if it's possible to like ungoofify them. I used to have like sketchbooks full of just like a lot of these like medieval style drawings, but they might just be like inherently goofy. I'm really not sure. But we'll see if we get some like teeth on them. You can see it already kind of has this like weird cartoony flavor, but we'll see what we can do about that. And if we can't do anything about it, we can't do anything about it. So also just I like narrating like what's going on and how I'm often like outside of my comfort zone. So if you've seen a lot of my drawings, you can tell that I work in like a very particular way of like engaging with the space. That's like how I would describe it. And here, it's totally different because I'm kind of trying to get that like Irish flavor. So I like feel very out of my element. It probably feels like, if you play like a certain kind of music all the time, you can kind of just like hop in and, you could like cut into someone's, song, and you kind of know what's going on even if you never played that song before, or, you kind of have like a feel for it. But then if you got thrown into something you don't really know about, like let's say jazz or something, you might not really have like a good idea of like what's going to look good and what's going to not. And that's kind of how I feel, but I'm also just rolling with it. And I think this should come off the back right here. Let's see if we can get that kind of like... And yeah, I think one way I'm going to get rid of like the goofiness of this is like the way the shapes like cut into each other. That's like really what I'm going to be banking on. And then if it stays looking goofy, it stays looking goofy. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I think that if I have kind of like a sharp shape here, that could probably help. And then I'm going to have it just like cut back like that. Try and like bump up the graphic nature. It's also interesting because nowadays like people's eyes are so wired to read things like as cartoons that you kind of have to stay away from like certain ways of engaging with the visual information, in my opinion. Like someone said before, we were looking at the faces, they were like, yeah, the faces look kind of weird. I think it's because they're so close to being cartoons that your mind's telling you like, oh, it's a painting of Jesus from the 800s, but it kind of looks like Saturday morning cartoons, and that's part of why they operate in that kind of like liminal space. If anyone knows what the uncanny valley is, that's a really good example of the uncanny valley. Let's see, should I get the light down more? It's like a little bit brighter than it's making it look, but I think it's okay. Let's see. When it dries, it'll look a little brighter. And, let's see. Picture isn't as crisp this time. Yo, you know what? Actually, I can bump up the bit rate. Let's do it. I only brought it down one time because it wasn't. It was like lagging a little bit, but I'm gonna bump it up right now. It's at 1300. I guess that's pretty low. I'm pretending I have any idea what I'm talking about right now. I'm gonna bump it up. Let's bump it up. Streaming video bit rate. It's 1800. Okay, I just pumped up the bitrate. Originally, I had it like crazy high, and YouTube wouldn't even like accept how high it was. So I lowered it a little bit, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so I want to get this like goofy flavor off the table, like I've been saying. So I'm going to try and cut in with some darker elements. Let's see if I can cut in. I think this dark blue will make it less goofy. Cool. Let's see. Cool. Perfect. It's funny also because naturally when I usually like try not to play up this reference, but naturally doing this, like I thought about Bob Ross a little bit, and I was thinking about what he paints, and he always paints like landscapes. And eventually I kind of realized, I was like, oh, that's because you can always kind of like save it no matter what. Like he probably never like really messed up too badly because you can always kind of like save the landscape, you know? It's just like a bunch of trees and hills and stuff. And let's see, I'm going to cut back like that. I really don't like this jaw shape. It kind of is lame. I copied it from the manuscript. I can see it out of the corner of my eye over here. But let's just see. Bring this up here. And I kind of want to paint the eye in yellow, but I really hate using yellow eyes. It always makes me think of like jaundice and stuff. Cool. And I'm going to put in like the Irish style teeth. Let's see. Should I put in... I can't tell how much I should be like visual referencing the thing. I'm going to put it in like this. So I'm going to put in these little bumps. I didn't really leave enough room in the mouth, but we're just going to go for it. And if it looks whack, it looks whack, whatever. I'm past the point of like being concerned that every single thing I make is perfect, which is a good place to be in. Okay, I want to get like a big tooth here, so I'm going to kind of try and see if I can get it out of the mouth. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Pretty good. Let's see. And then it also has these teeth coming back up. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's what we needed. And I will put in some kind of like tongue or something. Alright, I'm open to it. I'm open to that. And I'll put in this line right here. I'll put in this line back here. Okay, now the other thing that I think is going to give it like a little bit of that flavor is the yellow. There's like this really powerful like yellow on it. Let's see. I'm also just going to break away from the visual reference. The thing is also what's interesting is like I always tell people this, like you don't really want to be like copying off like a visual reference when you do stuff, because then whatever you're making, it's kind of like what's happening right now, but I'm going to like course correct, just becomes like a copy of the visual material you're referencing. It doesn't really become like its own thing. Yeah, that's why this looks kind of weird, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to grab the palette knife. So I'm going to mix up like a bright yellow right now. Let's see how this goes over here. And I'll also go back on the red and put some like alizarin crimson in, and I think that'll also like tighten it up a little bit. Oh, actually, you know what? I shouldn't be using this lemon yellow. I know exactly what color I should use. Oh, there's so much more like of the flavor of the manuscript. Perfect. Yeah, let's get some yellow ochre in here. Perfect. Cool. And I could even mix them a little bit, but I think just like straight yellow ochre would be perfect. And I'm going to try and get some kind of like pattern in here. Like I said, I'm like very like out of my element. Trying to get that flavor, but I'm trying to think how I want it to look back here. I think that my intuition tells me that if I kind of just like cut back like this, that's pretty good. And I'm going to have it like flowing up like this. Maybe coming down a little bit this way. Let's see what we can make happen over here. It's inevitable that, you know, doing a bunch of these streams, eventually one will not be perfect, so if that ends up being this one, I'm cool with it, but let's see how it goes. Yeah, that looks kind of dope. That's the other thing about like the kind of like Irish flavor is that it's very like perfect. It's very like perfectionist in its own weird way. So I don't know, I think like trying to do it like sketchy style is kind of interesting. Well, let's see. I'm also going to put in the yellow ochre here. I'm just going to put it in. Cool. It's kind of dope. Okay, now we're definitely getting somewhere. And I think I am going to take that like bright yellow I made. Already much less grainy. All right, cool. Yeah, let me know about the video quality. I don't know. I could bump it up again. I mean, obviously the thing is like the point of this is looking at art, so I want it to look as good as possible. But I've only had lag. I'm going to jinx it right now talking about it. I really shouldn't talk about it. But I've only had lag on one stream. And I think it was probably just some other like external circumstance. My computer is like this hardcore like gaming computer, so I really don't think that would be like the issue. All right, cool. And yeah, I feel like kind of like slavishly adhering to the thing I was looking at before is maybe why this looked a little weird. So I'm just going to kind of go off on my own little tangent over here. I think also just kind of embracing like it being a little rough. Like I'm filling in these lines on the teeth with yellow, but I'm not too worried about it being like totally perfect. I actually want it to look a little bit rough. So I'm just going to kind of like paint these in quickly over here. Someone asked, was I ever a perfectionist? Yeah, when it calls for it, man. When it calls for it, I'm like a hardcore perfectionist. What I'm doing right now, what I do with these streams, you know, I kind of think of it as like, I think this yellow line will also like toughen it up a lot. I kind of think of it as like, there we go. Like painting, sketching. Like I'm not really painting like a picture that I'm going to at the end be like, okay, cool. Like this is something totally perfect, like my best work ever. It's like a mix of like sketching and painting. So right now I'm not being a perfectionist. There's, of course, the pressure of like lots of people watching me, but it's fine. Even if I did something that turned out really, really, really bad, not that this is turning out bad, but even if I did hypothetically do something that turned out really bad, wouldn't really like bruise my ego or anything. After like, you know, all the pictures that I think are successful, it's not a big deal. But yeah, when it calls for it, I'm a hardcore perfectionist, man. It really depends on the medium. Digitally, it's kind of hard not to be a perfectionist because everything digitally is perfect naturally because you're working in Photoshop or Illustrator, you know. It's like you're painting into a perfect world and there's no little mistakes that happen. Like even right now, even just painting in this eye, like you can see it kind of has this shape over here because the way my brush hit the paper and I'm kind of just going, you know, I'm kind of just rolling with it. That's kind of just how it happens. But digitally that never happens. Digitally there are no like accidents of the materials. Yeah, this looks doper already. So it's kind of hard not to be a perfectionist. When I use certain materials, like one day I'll do a stream, but one of my favorite materials to use is pen and ink. I have these like crow quill pens. They call them that because they used to be made of crow quills. They're not still made of crow quills, but they used to be. Like a literal crow feather. And with those, it's almost like a surgical knife. It's actually like, it's like you're drawing with a surgical knife. And there, I'm really a perfectionist for sure. The ink stuff, I get really perfectional. Okay, there we go. Now we got the nice like flavor going on over here. And I'm also just going to... This paint is wet. I really shouldn't do it, so I'm not going to. Let's see. I'm just going to get this line going up here. Dope. Okay. That just got a lot doper. Perfect. So sometimes I'm a perfectionist. Sometimes I'm not. Yeah. All right. Joe says, let's try a higher bit rate. I'm down. Let's try it. Let's try it. Or you're watching on like a TV or something? One time a guy was watching it on a TV. What's like a normal bit rate? I have no idea. Let's try 2400. I'm trying 2400. We're going for it. Yeah, a little Aztec vibe. Yeah, a little bit. This will be a weird one. Whatever. We're all here for it. All right, damn, it's already been an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, I haven't perfected like taking questions and stuff, but if people want to start like asking me questions, you can if you want, or you know, I'm going to see how it goes. But yeah, definitely let me know how it looks. I don't know. I feel like it could be like brighter almost. Should we start fucking with the camera settings? Let's see. I'm going to turn the exposure up. Oh, what? Wow. That's how bright it should be. Dude, what? What if we go one higher? Thank you for being here on this journey with me, everyone. No. That's way too high. Oh, dude, that's perfect. That's exactly what it looks like. Wow, and where were we a second ago? Oh, what? Okay, cool. Well, are there other settings we should mess with? No, I think we're good otherwise. 2400 is high normal. Okay, let's roll there then. Cool. Okay, so the other thing I want to get going, I want to get some like head situation going on. Honestly, this probably will have an Aztec vibe. I'm pretty confident that's what's going to happen. But let's just roll with it. I'm going to put in, I feel like I should use blue. I don't know. I leaned a little too hard into the primary colors here. So I don't know. It might have like an overly primary color thing. We'll see though. And if it gets too, so I keep saying this over and over and over. It's probably partially my ego, but naturally you're like having people watching you, so you want it to be like perfect, but it's also not that interesting. But the interesting thing is then I can sort of like live talk about how the vibe is manifesting, which is interesting for me. So yeah, it's a little too Aztec right now, but what I'm thinking is that if it stays too Aztec, what I can do is balance it out with some writing, with some of that calligraphy, some of the Irish writing, and that'll firmly make it seem way less Aztec, especially if I get some of the letters that look like that really like Irish manuscript flavor, like the way they write their A's and stuff like that. I think that'll Euro it up a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if people know who Sutton Hoo is. Sutton Hoo is like a medieval, not medieval, it's pre-medieval. But it's this site where they found all these, I don't know what's called, like pre-medieval Anglo artifacts. And there's something about the primal European style that it's just really underutilized. If anyone wants to look up like Sutton Hoo stuff, I have a book of like Sutton Hoo artifacts over here. Maybe that's something we'll go into on like a book stream. But yeah, the primal Euro thing is not really well utilized in my opinion. It could be because Christianity really had to like put a damper on the pagan situation for a minute. They were like, okay, wow, you guys are really pagan. Let's like put this away. But now that it's been long enough, I feel like there is some element of it that really speaks to like primal European man. Can I say that? We don't really think of European man as having a primal side, but he does. He just doesn't really know it yet. Some of them know. The guys here in the chat probably know. Okay. Are there any religious occult beliefs you think are outright evil? Dropping a heavy one right off the bat. I get banned from YouTube now. Yes. Outright? Well, I mean, I don't really roll with like the human sacrifice thing. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? Let's see. It's a very spicy question. I don't want to overspice myself. Well, I guess you could say, well, I'm not going to name one specifically, but maybe it'll come up later and people will figure out what I'm talking about. But I'm really hard on the people who are all like, all religions are the same and like they teach the same thing, because I had to kind of learn the hard way that they don't. They really, really, really don't. And there are moral claims in other religions that are incongruous with my own morality. In general, I think, Western morality and stuff like that. I don't want to segue right from that into like shit talking one particular religion, mostly because I don't want to get banned, not because I have to hold back theologically. So I'll kind of soft segue into like one that people know I have a soft spot for, so I'm not like aggressively shit talking it. But even in Buddhism, perfect example. It's a very soft example also. Like in some theological systems, you get, stories where people justify like murder and killing people and stuff like that. I mean, that definitely happens. That definitely exists. Especially if you're working within a framework of like, I don't know, let's say like reincarnation or something. There are stories where, the moral lesson is like, well, it's your duty to fight this battle and kill these people, so just do it because they're going to reincarnate. So like, what do you care anyway? This is like the duty of like your life and stuff. But even in Buddhism, there's a story in the Lotus Sutra, for example, where Buddha says that it's like totally okay to lie sometimes if it serves like the goal of like liberating people. Hold on. I will answer that, but I want to just make sure I'm taking this in the right direction. I feel like we also need that malachite green, and I don't really know how I'm going to mix it up, so let's segue over to that. Maybe this is overexposed now? Let's see. I like the turned on exposure, though. It's really dope. What was I talking about? I was talking about, oh yeah, so to give you a concrete example of that, yeah, like for example in Buddhism, I'm not saying like every Buddhist thinks it's like okay to lie, I'm just kind of giving you an example. So I want to get that nice like malachite green color that we saw a second ago in the books, and I think that the cerulean blue plus the viridian might do it. I think that really might be it, so let's see. So yeah, in the Lotus Sutra, the Lotus Sutra is a really cool book, even though it has things I disagree with in it. There is a story where it's like an allegorical story. Well, so it's not really allegorical. Oh man, this is the perfect color. Might even be too. Look at that. That's exactly the malachite green that I was going for. But I don't know. Is it not green enough? Maybe I should put more viridian in. There's a story where the Buddha is talking about. The analogy is like there's a house, right? And the house is on fire. And there's kids inside the house, and the dad runs inside the house and says, hey everyone, like, let's see, maybe I turn the exposure down, you can see the color over here. Let's see, we're officially experimenting with the lighting. I don't know, I'll put it back up. I can only increase it by like 1 notch. I kind of wish there was a setting in between those two, but it's fine. So the dad runs in the house, and there's kids inside, and he says, hey, like the house is on fire, like we really have to get out of here. And the kids are like, haha, like, yeah, whatever, and they really don't care. So he says, like, no, we really have to get out of the house. Like, this is going to burn down. Like, we're all going to die. And the kids, like, don't get it because they're just, like, little kids. They're kind of, like, dumb. So the dad says, actually, you know what? I have outside on the lawn, there's these chariots and horses, and I got you all your favorite toys, and it's all just right outside. Like, come outside, and I'll give you all these toys and everything. And then they go outside, and there's nothing there. And the Buddha tells this story because he's like, yeah, well, the dad lied. But he lied because the beings themselves, those little children, weren't able to understand like the danger they were in. So the dad had to lie to them to get them out of that danger, and then that's totally justified. And he says that the Buddhas do that. You know, sentient beings, that's like the language they use in Buddhism. Sentient beings often don't understand the danger that they're in. They don't understand like anything beyond their like momentary acquisition of like sensory pleasures and things like that, or whatever weird situation they're in. Oh man, the green really classed this up a lot. So he's like, yeah, sometimes the Buddhas lie to them, and that's what I do to you sometimes. The Buddha says this in the Lotus Sutra. So that's like a very soft example, but I think that doesn't really go with like Christian morality, where lying and the devil being like the father of lies is like such a big deal. So yeah. I guess I could kind of talk about other systems that I have issues with. I don't really want to say one's evil. I kind of just like feel bad saying that. But let's see, any I think that are like truly evil. Yeah, I mean like satanic stuff and shit like that. And that's kind of like obvious though, right? Okay, cool. Okay. I'm kind of wondering if I should paint in that guy or if the style is going to be like a little weird. Let's see though. Okay, I want to put in the face, and then we'll see where we go from there. I think I should actually, maybe I should put in the eye in this like malachite green. I'm just straight up winging this. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but let's see. I'm going to put in the eye. The problem is whatever I put in the eye is going to make it look more cartoony. When I put the circle in, I know it's going to look like a cartoon, and I really don't want more of that energy. I could take it in a different direction. Actually, I am going to take it in a different direction. Why not? And I'm going to put in not a circle. Whenever you're making an image of something, you'll notice this if you draw a lot. How you treat the eyes changes the image so much. Even within like an illustration, if I'm doing an illustration for someone, like I just did a portrait of this guy's daughter. I drew a rabbit, right? There was a rabbit behind this like little girl. And if I put the eyes in the rabbit, like a dot, like if I put a black dot on the rabbit, then it's like a little cartoon rabbit. But if I don't put that dot eye in, then it's just like a symbolic, symbol of a rabbit. Does that make sense? And you can kind of play with that a lot. So I thought if I put the dot in there, it would not really look that good. So I put in the square, and I'm going to put a circle in the square, but I think putting the square in the circle there might kind of like soften it a little bit. Let's see. In the meantime, I'm going to break out the cadmium orange. Yeah, I'm really torn about how much I should adhere to like the color schemes we were just looking at, because there wasn't really orange in them, but let's see. I don't know. This one's kind of already out of control, so we'll just kind of roll with it. Let's see. Any other questions? I talked to you about traditionalism and Twitter DMs. I think the commonalities people like went on find in religion are like sexual magic and enlightenment, not so much morality. Yeah, it's true. Actually, it's a very sophisticated question. That's why I don't really talk about like perennialism and traditionalism and stuff too much, because like on Twitter, you have to have like a whole like exposition where you're like, well, what do you mean by this term? And like, what do you mean by this term? And like, well, what does this really mean? And after like 200 tweets, you can like finally start talking about it. But yeah, even within the commonalities though, I would have to like dig into like specifically like what we were talking about, to like say someone's like right or wrong. But in my opinion, even the commonalities like enlightenment and stuff like that, they're actually not really that similar. Like what it means to be enlightened in one system isn't really what it means to be enlightened in another. This orange is it's too close to the color of that. It looks kind of dope, but it's too close. Maybe I'll just roll with it. Let's see. So yeah, even the ideas of like enlightenment and what it means to be enlightened are often like very different within like the different systems. I mean, in Buddhism, enlightenment means to cease reincarnation. You stop being reincarnated and you just like kind of escape the wheel of like death and rebirth. But then you have Hindu systems where it's like totally different. Left hand versus right hand path. That's what we're talking about tonight. Occult shit. Yeah, everyone probably knows about me at this point, but I really don't fuck with the I think there's something about like this left hand. It's a really good word for it. I haven't used that terminology in a long time. Like the left hand path thing. I don't know, man. It's just not really my vibe. I mean, on one hand, I could say like I don't even know what people mean by that anymore because people use it to mean like a lot of different things. But I just got distracted by whether or not I should put in more yellow or whatever. Okay. Let's see. Where am I taking this? This is going in kind of a weird direction. I'm cool with it, but I really want to like de-Aztec it. It's so Aztec. Let's take a look back at this fucking thing over here. At this like monster face. I mean, maybe this is kind of Aztec too. Maybe I'm just playing a fool's game, trying not to Aztec it up too much. I'm just gonna lean into it. Let's see how it goes, and if it looks bad, it looks bad. Whatever, man. I think that putting more of these in and kind of just going hard on that and not like fighting it. I'm kind of like fighting the Aztec energy right now. So I'll just roll with it. It's St. Patrick's Day. People are probably drinking. Someone's probably drinking watching the stream right now. So let's just roll with it and see what happens. Yeah, left hand, right hand path stuff. Yeah, I don't really fuck with the left hand path thing anymore. Sorry, I keep looking at the chat. Okay. And let's see. I feel like I could just keep putting this in orange. Let's see how it goes with these kind of like shapes. And yeah, that's the other thing about the Irish aesthetic, since it's St. Patrick's Day, and that's why I'm branching out a little bit. The way it uses like, I don't know what to call it, like paisley energy, is that what I should call it? Is very different from what I'm used to. Like I'm putting in these bumps right now, and I feel very out of my element, but I think it's kind of cool. Oh, also, you know what? These are supposed to be like lions, right? Maybe that's why they're surrounded by these like these shapes. Do you think that's what it is? These are like the mane coming off the lion? Maybe it is. Maybe that is what it's supposed to be. If this is your first time watching one of these streams ever, normally I'm like really on point and like I know exactly what I'm doing, but I kind of intentionally didn't know what I was doing for this one. So if it's your first time watching it, that's what you signed up for. Not knowing exactly. Yeah, I think it is kind of like supposed to be like the lion's mane, I guess. That actually makes this make a lot more sense. I'm going to put in a tongue and then we'll put some stuff over here. I don't want this one to go on too long, but I'm kind of feeling it now. There we go. And yeah, that kind of suits like, like I said, I wanted to talk about being creative and stuff like that. I've mentioned this a few times before, but when you're doing things perfectly and getting it right, that's not really when you like learn or when you gather new things. If that makes sense, like playing an instrument, if you sit down and play a song like perfectly, I don't know, do you really learn anything from that? Not really. I mean, it's good to like play it perfectly sometimes, but you kind of have to like fuck around a little bit to get some new flavors in there. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah, it also makes a lot more sense now that I'm seeing the orange as like the lion's mane. Oh, fuck yeah. I guess I could have done these in the back orange too, but I don't know. In the book they were blue, but also in the book it didn't look like a lion. So, and I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna have these coming all the way around. And maybe I will put like a guy or something down there. I don't know. I'm kind of like worried about putting in the guy because I don't really want it to. I just feel like it's a whole nother can of worms, like the style the guy is in. But maybe I'm just being like kind of a bitch, and I should just go for it. Cool. Whatever I do on the next stream, I'll do it something a more routine style and make it perfect. But I think it's more fun to be like flailing around, you know. I'm kind of down. I'm just gonna throw in some orange back here. Fuck it. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of down with this. Cool. Perfect. Yeah, what else should we talk about? What else is St. Patrick stuff? Well, St. Patrick threw the snakes out of Ireland, right? That's like the whole story. So, makes sense. Boom. Okay, I'm going to put some orange in here. We're kind of floating between like the Irish manuscript style. You can also see exactly what I mentioned before when we were looking at the book. Like if you bring a little bit of the flavor, you kind of have to bring it all. But I'm cool with that. I'm cool with how this is coming out actually. Yeah, in the book they probably alternated colors. Yeah, maybe. We'll go back. We'll see how it goes. Boom. Once I also am like kind of cutting into the space a little bit more, it makes like a little more sense visually. I feel like also like I should make this like darker or something. Something about like that blue. It's funny, I literally cut open the tube of cerulean to get to the blue. And now I'm like, yeah, do we need that color? Maybe not. So I don't know, maybe I will alternate these really quick. I'm just going to put these in. Maybe this will finally be the one that's 90 minutes. Boom. And I also think I'm going to throw in like a little bit of, yeah, that looks doper actually. That looks doper. Cool. Perfect. Yeah, that looks a lot doper actually. Cool. All right, perfect. Okay, how do I want to start? Don't want to say like wrapping this up, but I want to start talking about landing the plane on the announcement booth. I also think what might make this look a little doper, and I'm gonna kind of go for something a little crazy right now. I mean, I'm not being very like precious with this. This looks all right, but I'm not like married to it. Is I'm just gonna come in with like the light ochre, and I really think that is going to class it up a little bit. Oh, someone said talk about symbolism of snakes, dude. Who's the freaking MVP in the chat right now? Yeah, dude, definitely. But yeah, if you tag me, you have to tag me like everyone else so I actually see it. But yeah, that's definitely what we should do right now. While I'm doing that, this might turn out dope. I'm really kind of enjoying that I don't know if this is gonna end up like looking good or not. That was the initial energy I wanted when I planned out the stream, so if you're into it, that's great. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of go wet in wet here a little bit. I'm just going to come over and see how it goes down. Okay, symbolism of snakes in different cultures. Yeah, man, that's a really interesting thing, actually. The first thing that makes me think of, like, in terms of, like, esoteric stuff you could look into is that, I hate using that word so much, but it's, like, the only way to describe, like, what it actually is that the snake paired with the bird, the snake paired with like a falcon or like an eagle is a really, really transcultural motif all over the world. In Tibet, in India, you get something called the Garuda. He is like it's like a griffin kind of. It's like a griffin man kind of situation. And it eats the snake. The snake in a lot of like Indic, Nepalese, Tibetan artwork is symbolic of like poison. Well, in more Buddhist stuff. It's symbolic of like like a mental poison is the word I'm looking for. Like in the center of a Buddhist kind of map of reincarnation called a Bhava Chakra, there's a snake in there, and the snake represents aversion. It represents like avarice and like aversion, like that kind of like negative sentiment, you could say. And you'll get Garuda, this kind of like Buddhist griffin man kind of situation. And he'll be eating the snake because Garuda can transmute that poison. Likewise, if you go literally to the other side of the world, even on something like the Mexican flag, there's an eagle eating a snake. There it comes from some Aztec story about how the Aztecs saw like an eagle eating a snake, and that's where they knew to build a city or something like that. But yeah, oftentimes the snake is symbolic of that. Symbolically paired with, sorry, it's interesting to talk while I'm painting, but it's all good. Symbolically paired with the bird of prey. I guess bird of prey is the word I'm looking for. And that occurs all over the world in all different cultures. And it's kind of interesting because I don't know, do you really see like falcons and eagles like eating snakes? Like, not really. But that motif exists even in the Western zodiac. The Scorpio zodiac sign sometimes is an eagle and a snake if you look back at like older manuscripts. As for the snake itself, it's kind of split. I mean, even in cultures where it has a positive association sometimes, like in Hindu stuff, sometimes deities will have snakes, like Shiva. Shiva's associated with snakes. I like that this parchment color really, like, the parchment color in the background really fixed the vibe a lot. I'm always talking about not painting on white, but I never really take my own advice, and yeah, that really fixed up the vibe a lot. Anyway, yeah, even in cultures where I feel way better about how this looks now with the parchment colored background. Do you see how much that changed it? That's why I'm always telling you guys not to paint on white. Now I took my own advice. Yeah, so even in cultures where the snake has a positivistic association, like Shiva, in Hindu cultures, even within that world, sometimes people are still like sketched out by snakes. I think even in places where there is a good association to it, it sometimes still has that negative. I mean, snakes are creepy, man. Snakes are fucking creepy. I mean, does anyone not have that primal feeling when they look at a snake? You get a little creeped out by it. And I think it's probably as close as possible to a universal symbol of something not human. That's a really good way to put it. Snakes are almost universally a symbol of something that is not innately human. There's something about it that the human spirit sees as inherently, I fucking sound like one of these modernist philosophers, sees as inherently the other. I fucking hate when people say the other in philosophy and stuff, but that's actually kind of what it is. It sees it as inherently, like, I don't even want to say otherworldly, but it's just like people don't really identify with them. I think even in places like, let's say like Nepal, where Shiva's wearing snakes and stuff like that, I think it's because of that. It's not in spite of that. It's not in spite. It's not like those people don't feel that element of the snake. They feel that otherness of it, and maybe that's why, in my opinion, it's tied in with the divinities and the deities and stuff like that. Even in Aztec culture, they have some like snake gods and stuff, but again, I would say it's not in spite of that. I would say it's because of that. It's almost like they come from somewhere else. They have some really weird like flavor to them. Yeah, I mean, in case anyone doesn't know, the pervading theory is St. Patrick expelling the snakes from Ireland is like symbolic of like the Druids. That the snake was like a symbol of the Druids, and then should I put an orange dot in here? I don't know. I finally just got it cooking good. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, I used to work with like a lot of, I can't talk about my old jobs, unfortunately. Like I kind of wish I could, but at this one job, I was in a position to work with people from all over the world, like all the time. And we were in, I mean, it wasn't like a zoo. It was kind of like a zoo. I can't say what it was because it's like too specific, but it was kind of like a zoo. And I would get people that were fucking creeped out by snakes all the time. Like I'd get people who had just come to America from like, not like immigrants, like tourists. Like they were frankly like super rich usually. And yeah, sometimes they would like see the snakes and like they would tell me, like they'd be like, wow, like that's fucking creepy. Or like, you know, we'd be like drawing stuff sometimes. And yeah, like if I paired them up with the snakes, or if I was like, yeah, like do one of these, they would be like, nah, dude, I don't fuck with that. Interestingly enough, in my own dreams, pretty much the only like super consistent thing is that venomous animals like snakes are symbolic of like danger. It's like the biblical symbolism. In my dreams, snakes and venomous animals have like the biblical symbolism. Satanic, you could say. Satanic in like the literal sense, not like LaVey, like Reddit Satanism. Okay, this looks dope now. I feel way better about it. I mean, it's not like something I would like hang on the wall, but I feel like a little bit better about siphoning that like Irish flavor out. I don't know. In the background, should I drop in? I'm going to drop in some like motif. I can kind of see it in my mind, but I'm just going to drop it in. Anything else about snakes? I'm kind of just like rambling about snakes, but I do have a lot to say about them. There's the Nagas in India. That's something people can look into. The Nagas are like these. It's a really cool archetype. It's like an underground. I'm just gonna kind of go for it. I really don't know if this is a mistake or not, but I'm just gonna kind of go for it with these like. I want just like a very, very, very subtle pattern in the background that's kind of hinting at that manuscript like maximalism, maximalist. There's a really good word. The manuscripts have like a maximalist flavor. Like instead of minimalist, it's maximalist. So I'm just gonna try and like throw that in while I'm talking right now. Oh yeah, the Nagas. The Nagas are like these underground like snake women who are like keepers of like wisdom and stuff. And they're these kind of like it's almost like mermaids if mermaids were evil and had snake hair and lived underground, kind of. They're like chthonic entities in like a very pure sense. And I also thought that was kind of interesting. Actually, in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a philosopher named Nagarjuna. His name's Nagarjuna. He has Naga in the front of his name. And he wrote this book. It's called the Madhyamaka. He wrote a few other books also. That's almost like a compendium of... It's kind of like if there was a Tao Te Ching in Tibetan Buddhism. That's what Nagarjuna wrote. And one of the stories about him is that he got a book from the Nagas, that he went down and got a sutra, something the Buddha wrote, something the Buddha like said kind of like in written form, from those snake women. So it's interesting because they're like snake keeper of wisdom kind of style. So yeah, snakes are weird. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping this up. If anyone wants to ask me anything else, feel free to ask me. Yeah, the Ouroboros, that's a weird one. Oh, I didn't even really talk about the Western symbolism. In Western esoterica, this is something a lot of people don't know about, and I kind of like putting these feelers out there because, I feel like everyone, at least that hangs out on Twitter, that's maybe like into what I do in some sense. You have some part of you that's like into like esoteric stuff, and I don't want to say everyone's kind of looking for their own thing. It's not really like that. It's like everyone's always looking for like new territory, I guess you could say, something everyone hasn't like beaten to death. And something that people haven't really checked out enough, in my opinion, is something called Orphism, like Orpheus. Orpheus was a figure in pagan antiquity, and before and after. And the symbol in Orphism, Orphism. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. I actually have a shirt with it on there because I felt like it wasn't like explicitly like just pagan style, but the symbol in Orphism is this egg. It's called the Orphic egg. It's an egg. I'm gonna draw this really poorly because I'm holding my hand in a weird position. And there's a snake, and the snake is like wrapped around the egg. It's like coming down and around. I'm holding my hand in a really weird position, so I'm actually pretty stoked about how that looks. It's called the Orphic egg. It's a snake wrapped in an egg, and it comes from this pagan myth of creation, where there's an egg, and it's like the cosmic egg that the snake is wrapped around. So yeah, that's something cool you could check out. Orpheus. His name's Orpheus. It was a big figure in like Rosicrucian art. Rosicrucians really liked Orpheus a lot. Rilke, who was probably not directly affiliated with the Rosicrucians, but there was like an overlap in terms of like the mystical Euro vibe. That's like crypto-Christian. Rilke has a set of poems called Sonnets to Orpheus that are like fucking awesome. Okay. What am I doing right now? I kind of want to wrap this up. This was a cool experiment. I mean, it's not like the best picture of all time, but it's kind of fun, like experimenting. Sometimes on the stream, I feel like that's just how it's going to be, like a cool experiment. If you want to ask me more stuff, you can. I'm going to start wrapping this up, though. I don't know what to write. I never know what to write. I'm just going to put like I'll put alpha. I'll put an alpha and an omega. That's perfect. So their A's are kind of like, they have this like capital. Oh, it's still wet, but it's okay. Have you read Meditation on the Tarot, Journey to Christian Hermeticism? Yes, I have. That's a really interesting book, man. Perfect. Not like last question maybe, but how long have we been going for? Oh, it's been like an hour and 40 minutes. It's like kind of the length of time I wanted it to be, but we'll see. Maybe we'll hang out. Maybe I'll draw some more shit. Let's see how it goes. Yes, so I have read that book. It's called Introduction to Christian Hermeticism or something like that, as you say. I kind of tried to use this half circle shape, but I don't really know if that was the move, but it's fine. Yeah, that book is actually really, really, really interesting. I think about it every day. It is on my shelf. I actually was telling someone else about it before. If anyone doesn't know about it, it was written by an anonymous person because he wanted to remain anonymous during his life. But he wrote this book. Oh, the fat A. That was a mistake. It's okay, though. You can make mistakes on the stream. Yeah, there we go. It's a little bit better. I'll make it like it says Patrick, but like off the screen. Cool. Yeah, so it's an introduction to Hermeticism, to Christian Hermeticism. It's kind of a lot to go into. I could go off on it right now. Hermeticism is kind of like a made-up category. Hermes, there's this guy named, I don't know how much to go into it. There's a guy named Hermes Trismegistus, and there we go. Get that ball going on there. And he's kind of just like a mythological figure that lots of teachings are attributed to. It's kind of like the most neutral way I could put it. And there's a branch of there's a type of people that are into these books called the Corpus Hermetica that call themselves Hermeticists that are also Christian. It's kind of the most basic way I could put it. And there's a book that's called The Introduction to Christian Hermeticism. And the reason that I think about it every day and all the time, I'll put some more writing back here while I'm talking. It looks kind of cool. I feel like we're kind of like closing in on like something that doesn't look like too bad, honestly. Someone said, please go off on Hermeticism. All right, yeah, why not? You guys have stuck with me. If you stuck with me the whole time while I'm painting this like weird thing and no one's been sure where it's going, I feel like we landed in a good spot. But there was a minute where I was like, is this going to be the first one where it's like not really good? So I will go off on Hermeticism as the reward for coming this far with me. Yeah, well, the thing is that... okay, perfect. With Hermeticism, there's not really one like set of teachings for things that are Hermetic. You'll often hear people that are into esoterica, especially what's called Western esoterica, talking about Hermetics and Hermeticism. There's a podcast called Hermetics that's kind of popular in certain circles. And the thing is, in there, if you actually dig in and read like the writings of Hermes Trismegistus, you get everything from like straight up, if you take a sparrow's beak and a purple crystal and put it in a bag, that will prevent you from, I don't know, getting a fever or something. You get everything from like hardcore, like I would call like superstitious, like natural magic, to teachings about the nature of mind and the nature of the universe, and well, the universe works in this principle of like binary rhythm and gendered, everything's gendered, so things are male and female, things are off and on, and these things like these principles like manifest in the universe in like a certain way. So you get everything from like, I guess you could say like pagan philosophy to just straight up what I call like natural magic, the kind of thing I described before. Where you can place it in your mind is that supposedly, and probably really, but also supposedly, a lot of occult stuff is branding. Honestly, a lot of the occult is like about like the branding a thing has. It's supposedly from when Greece had colonized Egypt, and it's supposed to be like Egyptian philosophy plus Greek philosophy. Philosophy is not really the right word. Like Egyptian occult plus Greek occult is kind of like how it brands itself, I guess. So you can put it in that space in your mind where like, you know, it's like part like fuzzy, weird, hoodoo-y ancient religion, and then part like pagan, Greek philosophy situation, but it's not one thing is basically what I'm getting at. And for that reason, when people say hermetics, when people say like that book's a perfect example. It says, oh, this is Christian Hermeticism. It often has nothing in common with other things that call themselves hermetic. Anyway, should I talk more about Hermes Trismegistus? For a while, yeah, I will actually. So this is something, you know, you have to like kind of like dig in to like really find the answer here. So I will talk about it a little bit. I'm gonna paint some shit like around the outside, I guess, while we're talking, or maybe I'll just paint like a little alizarin crimson like border in or something. Yeah. So the thing is, the other reason why it's very confusing to dig into like Hermes and who Hermes was and stuff. Is that his full writings weren't translated until very, very, very late in the game. So there was a long time that people were talking about him and speaking of him without being able to actually read what he wrote. So there's like the perception, and then probably sometime around the Renaissance, that perception collides head on with the reality of the translated texts. So for a long time, it was thought that, and this is why you'll see it in Christian stuff, and in my opinion, this is the heritage of that book you asked me about. Kind of a long walk, but if you watch the whole stream, it's worth it to give you some fruit at the end of the long walk, I guess. you'll see it paired with Christian stuff because for a very long time, before all the writings were translated, people were like, oh, well, this philosopher Hermes, it's kind of like Moses, where there's this pre-Christian figure who was so wise and so brilliant that he has these teachings that kind of prefigure Christianity. And he was one of these figures. And actually, there's a really famous, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a marble inlay. There's a really famous floor design. Oh, this dark red. I'm just going to like paint this in loosely because it needs it in the color scheme. In Siena, in the cathedral in Siena. By the way, if you get a chance to go there, you should definitely go. It's a really beautiful cathedral. It's a cathedral in Siena. And in the floor is an image of Hermes Trismegistus, because before they could read him, that's what they thought he was. They were like, oh, let's put him in this big design, kind of like if you look at the Sistine Chapel, which you should look at, there are what's called the Libyan Sibyls and the Sibyls. There are these pagan figures who were thought to like prefigure the coming of Christ. Some of that stuff is real. Some pagan writers and philosophers did talk about things that are kind of like prefiguring of Jesus. My favorite example is Virgil. Virgil talked about like, the Lamb of God and like his blood, like white washing things clean. And I do actually see that as like a prefiguration of the Christian era and Jesus coming actually. I could bust that out. Maybe I could bust that out. I could bust that out at the end of the stream, actually. I know exactly where it is in one of my books over here. Anyway, though, yeah, so there's a famous image of Hermes in the floor there. And then once they finally translated the text, once they finally translated what's called the Corpus Hermetica, if you want to sound cool and call it the Corpus Hermetica, it's like Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. Corpus Hermetica is the bodies of Hermes, but it's really just the body of Hermes' writings. It's all his writings basically compiled. And once they translated the Corpus Hermetica, some people were like, actually, this doesn't really prefigure Christianity in like any serious way. It's just not really Christian at all. There's almost nothing in here that like is even remotely Christian. And they kind of let it go. They were like, all right, well, that was a cool idea, but it didn't really play out. But the idea of Hermes as that figure remained, and some people still attach a lot of like significance to him. Then it becomes kind of like a Western occult thing. There's a weird time in the Renaissance where people are really trying to merge the occult and Christianity. There's a guy named Pico. I'm gonna Englishize his name because I don't speak Italian. So if you're Italian, I'm really sorry. You guys are going through a lot right now, but it's gonna happen. It's Pico della Mirandola. I think that's his name. And he was really into like making occult stuff Christian. Like the Kabbalah and all that. And I've been to Tuscany. I've actually seen like the Medici rooms where they're painted like the four elements, and all those guys were into alchemy. It's kind of a whole other story, but suffice to say that there was a big push in that time and place to make a lot of occult things Christian. So that happened with Hermes. It hangs on in Western occult after that. It's kind of another whole story I can go off on, but Pico Mirandola. The red looks really dark. It looked really dark before. It's a little bit light now, so I don't know if that was the best idea, but we're just going to roll with it. It's kind of a whole other story, but Pico Mirandola, actually, so he wrote this whole thing about how the Kabbalah and Hermeticism and everything was like actually really Christian and how we should totally roll with it. And it's actually a really funny story because he wrote all this stuff and he was super excited. It's something like, the 300 or 800 theses. He has this huge like body of writings. And he sent it to the Pope, and he was all amped to have a meeting with the Pope. And before they even met him, they were like, oh, wow, this guy's really a heretic. And they totally condemned his book and told him to fuck off, basically. So he wrote another thing that's seen as one of the first like humanist writings ever. I forget what it's called, but he only wrote a few things. If you look him up, you'll find it. His name's Pico Mirandola. So it was a big trend. Hermes was part of that. And after that, it becomes kind of like an occult thing. And then in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but after that... he becomes more of like a placeholder for, frankly, a certain vibe than anything else. I'm going to throw some indigo around so it's like darker. I feel like that red was like a little bright, but it's cool. I'm also really enjoying talking about this, so if this is boring, let me know, but I'm just going to go off for a minute on Hermeticism, because I want you guys to know. I want people to be able to like talk about this stuff casually, and if I give you like a jumping off point, someone can go like even deeper than I went. It's kind of like my logistics. Anyway. Oh yeah, so after that, he becomes kind of like a placeholder. Like, for example, if you dig into like alchemy stuff and things like that, there's something called the Hermetic Museum. That's what they call the images in alchemy that you see over and over and over. It's called the Hermetic Museum. it's like a museum in your mind. It's like a museum of like culture, not a literal museum, obviously, but they call this store of images that continually resurface in mystical traditions the Hermetic Museum. Which perfectly brings me to the book you asked me about, The Introduction to Christian Hermeticism, because, wow, that was a really perfectly timed little walk around, because that's the view it takes of it. In there, it's not like that guy's like referencing like the writings of Hermes Trismegistus. He's just kind of like going off on his own particular view of this vibe that's often called Hermetic. That's really a really good key I could give you to looking into occult and esoteric stuff. It's often branding. Mysticism is often about branding and the aesthetic, not even in a surface level way, not even in like a way that I'm belittling it, but it really is. So that book's really interesting because you can look up the book if you want. It's called An Introduction to Christian Hermeticism. And the reason I got into it is because, someone used this word for me. I feel like it's really fucking pretentious, but someone called me an esotericist. And I was kind of like, yeah, I kind of am. Like, even though it makes me sound like really pretentious, that really is just what I am. I'm into like esoteric and mystical things. And in that book, so I had a big period of my life. I'm kind of still in that period, I guess you could say, where I'm like, how much of my like esoteric background can I bring into like Christian world with me, and how much of that is good for me to do, and how much of it is just me like trying to like cope basically, and like I want it to be good but it's not. So there's that book, Introduction to Christian Hermeticism. You know what? I'm just gonna get the book. We're talking about it so much. I'm just gonna get it, and then we'll wrap the stream up soon. This looks kind of dope. I feel pretty good about that. Good St. Patrick's Day energy. A little dark, a little light. I'm feeling it. Oh, also, I was just talking during that whole thing. You can see how much doper it got when I added the contrast. You always want to turn up the contrast. Contrast being the difference between light and dark. You always just want to rev up the contrast. In fact, before I go grab this book, I'm just gonna like throw in a little dark in here. I feel like that's also like what this needs. Like maybe this could like mirror the darkness of the Cool. I'm not really going anywhere. It's just right here. Hold on one second. All right. Since I just spent like 10 minutes leading up to it, I will break out the book. Boom. It's called Meditations on the Tarot, A Journey into Christian Hermeticism. Now, because of the way the camera is, you can only see the top of the book. That is perfect because, let's go down. We're going down. There's a tarot card. Maybe this will surprise you. Oh, Afterword by Hans von Balthasar. What's that title right there? It says he's a cardinal. So I knew about this book, and I saw that this guy that was selected to be a cardinal, I don't know if he actually became a cardinal, just for the record, but he was selected to be a cardinal, and then I think he died before he could actually take office as a cardinal. Don't quote me on that. I'm not totally sure. But I was like, what? This guy that John Paul II selected to be a cardinal wrote the outro to this book about the tarot, and that just totally blew my mind. I was like, how is that possible? And I have to understand why. And I actually found a PDF of this book online, but it didn't have the outro. And I was like, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't do anything until I know what this guy who was selected to be a cardinal by the Pope himself wrote about this. I mean, I have to know. And I ordered the whole book. Look how big this book is. You think I'm LARPing over here? I ordered this whole huge book just so, because like I said, I found the PDF. I could have just read the PDF just so I could read. There's like 10 pages in the back he wrote. It might even be less than that. It might even be just 8 pages. I ordered this whole thing just so I could read this because I couldn't find any version online that had this afterword. So I got the whole book just for that reason. It's like 5 pages. It's literally 5 pages. Yeah, it actually is. Because I had to know. And there's actually even photos of this book on John Paul II's desk. There's a really cool photo where John Paul II is like sitting, looking off into space, and there's just this huge book. It's actually in the original language. I don't know if it was written in French or German. It's sitting on his desk in 2 huge volumes. So I was like, I have to know. I have to know what the Catholic Church says about this. Like, I just literally have to know. So I got the book and I read it, and look at this. I think about this honestly, for real. I think about this every single day. Every single day, I think about the little paragraph that I'm about to show you right now. Every single day. Every day. And I still don't know what to think about it. So it says, can't stay away from the books. Tried to just do straight painting, but we started with a book, we'll end with a book, and then I'll wrap this up. Maybe we'll talk more and I'll wrap this up. So it says, just gonna read this first paragraph. I don't want people to think I'm about to go off on like some huge reading thing. A thinking, praying Christian of unmistakable purity. He's describing what the book is. So what he's talking about right now, you finish the book and he's describing what the book is. A thinking, praying Christian of unmistakable purity reveals to us the symbols of Christian Hermeticism in its various levels of mysticism, gnosis, and magic, taking in also the Kabbalah and certain elements of astrology and alchemy. These symbols are summarized in the 22 so-called major arcana of the tarot cards. By way of the major arcana, the author seeks to lead meditatively into the deeper, all-embracing wisdom of the Catholic mystery. Firstly, it may be recalled that such an attempt is to be found nowhere in the history of philosophical, theological, or Catholic thought. The Church Fathers understood myths born from... So it goes on and on and on. But he's talking about this guy taking magic, Kabbalah, astrology, and tarot cards and using them to convey the Catholic mystery. And this outro, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I mean, honestly, I could actually. But it's not like condemnatory. It's not saying that this book like sucks or is bad or something. You think I got paint on the back? Nah, I moved the painting, bro. I moved the painting. This is not amateur hour. I've been all around painting. Oh, did I get paint on it? No, actually, I think this was here before. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, it's not a huge deal. Anyway, though, so, yeah, it's not like condemnatory. It's not saying it's like bad. And I don't know, man, there's just something about it. Like, there's something about this book where the fact that this cardinal wrote, felt comfortable writing an outro to a book about the tarot cards. I don't know, man. There's just such a weird, sync up there. I don't know. I don't really have like a point. I just went on like a whole really hard line, but I don't really have like a point even. There's just something about it because like I feel like that's such a big theme of my life is like being the reformed occultist and being someone who was like, yeah, I was really into X, Y, and Z, but now I'm over here. And I don't know. I feel like when I left, I used to live in New York. I guess that's not too doxy. People know that. When I left New York, I was in this really interesting state where I was like, okay, like I have to like get out of here. And I really hit this wall where it doesn't really matter. I mean, just like for the point of the story, I'll just mention it. But you know, I was like drinking a lot and I was like smoking weed all the time, and I got really depressed, and I was also hitting a wall spiritually because I was trying to squeeze like blood from this stone of like, what's the word I'm looking for? When things are like mixed together from different religions, syncretic. This like syncretic modern psychedelics plus drugs plus shamanism plus occult stuff plus Eastern mysticism that I think so many like frankly like white people are into. And I've been trying to squeeze blood from this stone like so hard, and it just wasn't working, that I had this time where I was like, okay, all this is like off the table, and I pushed it all off my table. And I had to just clean it out and be like, yo, I have to focus on like one thing at a time, like my relationship with God, and like this is not working, and like start over. And it's just interesting because now I'm floating in this space where I'm like, in some ways, like I do feel like these symbols, you know, I can really see it both ways. Like tarot is a perfect example. Like, are they like inherently evil or something? I mean, I don't know. Tarot cards are kind of sketchy, right? They kind of are. But at the same time, like, sometimes I think with those esoteric things, I can't tell if they're inherently bad or if they're just roped into things that are bad often. Like, I was led to Christianity literally by studying all this esoteric stuff. So is there something about it that sometimes I think it's because really the kind of like theory that I've developed is like, you know, there are physical laws to the universe, right? If we're going like pure science world. And like if you just went out and did a bunch of experiments, no matter what those experiments were, they would manifest those physical laws. Like gravity accelerates things at 9.8 meters per second. There are these forces, you know, electromagnetism. There's these laws that exist. And even if you went out and did experiments, no matter what they were, they would manifest those laws, right? Sometimes I feel like the theological framework is also like that, where if you set out into these systems of information and looking at things symbolically and checking them against your spirit and all this work, I feel like it's almost like there is an inherent, well, I think there is actually an inherent like theology to the universe, obviously. And those things can like manifest it. Like studying the zodiac and stuff like that whether it's real or fake or, pagan or whatever, like that network of symbols and thinking about them did help lead me to Christianity. But is that because there's something about them? Is it because any system of information like that would lead you to God, because God's this like underlying aspect of the universe that manifests unimpededly in anything? That's like the informational superstructure to the universe anyway. Or am I just like coping and I want to bring these things that I like I have an emotional attachment, I have a personal attachment, I have part of my ego wrapped up in knowing about all this like occult and esoteric stuff. So am I just trying to fit a circle piece into a square peg because it serves me in some way? And I can't fucking tell. And then I find this book where this cardinal is talking about like astrology and Kabbalah and tarot cards and how they like this author's use them to like show the Catholic mystery. And it just leaves me in such a weird place, man. And I feel like that's also part of the difference I get between Orthodox world and Catholic world. In Catholic world, there's this understanding almost, like a lot of the Medicis were into like alchemy, and there's a saint who's an alchemist. Not that alchemy is like 100% clean, but there's a saint who's an alchemist. I think his name's like Saint Magnus or something. But in Orthodox world, there's kind of not that understanding. But is that cultural? Is it just because in Eastern Europe and Russia and Greece, in Greece they had it though. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It just leaves me in like a really weird place. And I'm partially just going on about this because not only do I think it's interesting, but I want other people to like help me figure it out. And and then you have the whole like Vatican II situation. Like, is it just because of Vatican II that now the modern church has this like equanimous perspective, but isn't that valid because it was, so I don't know, man. I'm glad you asked me about that book, but that's like a really interesting part of my life. And yeah, I think about that book every day. The actual content of the book, to be honest with you, it's kind of funny because I just went off so hard on like what it is as an artifact. The actual content of the book, I can kind of take or leave it a little bit. It gets very rambly. I felt like when I first got the book, I was like, okay, I am going to finish this book. I'm going to start it and finish it. And I was pounding it and pounding it and pounding it. But after like 100 pages, it was almost like it was just washing over me, and I was like getting lost in this like fuzz of like vaguely spiritual language. Also, it's not even really about the tarot cards. He just uses them as a jumping off point. So every chapter is like, let's talk about the Chariot tarot card. Chariot, chariots, journeys. You ever thought about journeys and you take a journey, and it goes on about all these like topics that kind of branch out from there. And then in the end, like the last 2 pages of the chapter, it'll be like, yeah, so the Chariot tarot card anyway. So it's not even really about the tarot cards, but I don't know. I'm glad I kind of got that out there because like I said, I want kind of more people thinking about it with me. That's part of also why I'm doing this. I want more people to like talk about this with, and more people to like kind of help me figure things out. But yeah, that was a really, really nice little detour. I really, really enjoyed that. I hope that was interesting, or at least not nonsensical. Nice, and now we're at 2 hours. All right, cool. So I'll just wrap up this painting thing. Maybe I'll take a few questions and then wrap it up. This one was kind of cool. I feel okay about it. I mean, I'm not like gonna hang it on my wall, nor do I want to like throw it away. This is a really good manifestation of like painting, sketching that I was talking about. So like, yeah, sometimes you do stuff. Someone was saying in the beginning, like, oh, I sketch now, but it makes me realize how bad I am. Sometimes you do stuff and you just like learn from it, man. Like here, I did learn a few things as I was going on, like the alternating lion's mane thing. The teeth, I really think that if I put the teeth in front rather than in back of the blue, it would have been tighter. Also, as I was painting it, I don't know, I kind of felt like this, the looseness, the like illustrative looseness of the jaw and this snout. If I did it again, I would really tighten it up. I would like fit it into more of like a framework, like have it more punch out straight and have this punch out straight. But whatever. Sometimes painting is just fun, and sometimes it's chill to just do something. You don't have to worry about it looking perfect. Almost like everything I do has to be like perfect. So yeah. Just want to encourage people to know they can do paintings. They don't have to be great all the time, and they could just be fun sometimes. Nice Bob Ross energy. I have ascended to esoteric Bob Ross status now. It's officially happened. Yeah, maybe I'll take a few questions if people have questions, but otherwise, let's wrap this up. This is good timing and everything. I really love, like, honestly, it's so flattering that people like want to watch this. I saw someone before who was like, "Oh, I missed the beginning. Like, that sucks. Like, I'm mad I missed the beginning." Like, it's really cool for me that people enjoy this. Something I really enjoy doing, and I'm only going to get better at it, hopefully. So, thanks for being here in the beginning. If anyone wants to ask me anything, they can. Otherwise, I'll probably just talk for like another minute or two, and then we'll wrap this up. I'm just going to talk about stuff until until any questions come up in the chat. Oh yeah. Well, I don't want to break out another book. Well, maybe I will real quick. Really quick, we'll just take a... I'm not going to open this, but you can see there's this Anglo vibe that is kind of related to the Irish vibe. That's something else we'll go into later. Maybe we'll break into this on the stream on Saturday if I do like a book-looking stream. Read anything good in the Bible lately that's stuck in your mind? Man, I haven't been hitting the Bible as hard as I should be recently. I have been prepping to go back into theology world. I kind of detoured into like modern philosophy and re-looking at certain like key figures in like modern philosophy and stuff for a minute. Just because I was kind of trying to remember, I was like, is that all stuff really bullshit, or did I just kind of feel that way about it at the time? And then I was like, yeah, it kind of sucks actually. So I'm getting ready to go back into theology world. Honestly, I am kind of at that point where I'm not aggressively reading the Bible all the time, even though I should be. I'm more trying to figure out my framework for how the Bible fits into my larger, like, theological view of the universe, if that makes sense. Like, right now, it's kind of, like, a little more precious for me to take the time that I'm reading to see what I should think about the Bible rather than reading it. Is that, like, a really lame answer? Probably I should just be reading it, like, before bed at night. But not really. I often go back and read the first Gospel of Matthew. That's probably the part of the Bible I've read the most, like over and over and over. But no, not really. I haven't been a good boy. I've not been reading my Bible. I'll get back into it and bring it up. Right now, what I'm eyeing is I have this huge book of Augustine. I have this huge book of Aquinas. I'm feeling like I'm going to jump into the Aquinas book for my plague reading, my quarantine reading. But every day I'm just thinking so much about my systemic theology, like how I think about things and what I think about things and what I think about the church and the traditions and the history and how I fit into that and where I should fit into that and stuff. So maybe that's why I'm confused, because I'm just like reading all this shit. Maybe I should just say fuck it and go read the Bible. Maybe. I'll just read a few of these chats and then we'll get out of here. I'd be very careful with von Balthasar. Yeah, it's kind of a good note to wrap up on, actually. So it's really interesting for me, man, because, yeah, like, the Pope really liked Balthasar, but then people... and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying, like, then people tell me. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. That's not where I'm going with this. But, yeah, then people are like, yeah, no, you got to be careful with that guy. He's, like, a little sketchy. And that's also something I think about, like, like, what's the deal? Like, if this guy was so sketchy, like... why would he be chosen to be a cardinal and be so high up? And, like, I know the answer, like, I get it, like infallibility is not that much of a thing, and, like, yeah, people could make mistakes or people can be weird, But that's something else I just think about, man. Like, I don't know, I feel so, like, I'm just being really candid with you guys right now. I feel, like, so mystically drawn to the Catholic Church. And I really was reading, like, a ton about Orthodoxy, and I'm kind of still... And I can see where the Protestants are coming from, where Orthodox are coming from also. I'm kind of floating in this space where I can see where everyone's coming from, but I don't know. It's like I just can't put it down that there's something that I need to, like, figure out about it, or... I don't know. And somehow I feel like the key is, like, floating there in these figures that are part of the modern church, but then maybe don't line up, like, dogmatically with... the church's, like, structure and why and how and what the deal is with that. I don't know, man. Think about that a lot, dude. Think about that a lot. All the time. Every day. All the time. Went down a spiritual similar path. Seems like you're willing to admit that you're not doing the right thing. Is the act that leads to God. Yeah, you have to be willing to be self-critical. That's the wall I hit. Honestly, that's the wall I hit. I talk about it a lot. Try not to talk about it too much, but yeah, you hit a wall. I had to hit a wall where I was like, okay, the operating system that I'm using is not perfect. It's not good at all. I've, like, just been drinking a shit ton and I'm super depressed, and, like, clearly, like, me driving the car alone is, like, not really working. He's arguably a heretic. Yeah, I've heard that, man. I've heard that. I'm not even going to say you're wrong. I don't really know, actually. I haven't read enough of his stuff myself. Funny, the one I'm here for, we talk about Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, dude. Talked about it a bunch. Do you have any interest in Christianity when you started your... did you have any interest in Christianity when you started your spiritual journey? Personally, I feel no real interest in it other than Gnosticism. So this person's saying, in case anyone can't see the chat, yeah, was I into Christianity when I started out? You're not into it other than Gnosticism. Honestly, man, no. It took me a really, really, really long time to even consider Christianity, and it basically only happened because I had reasoned myself through to a conclusion that was so close to Christianity that I had to reconsider it. Also, I feel like there was some, like, level of, like, divine intervention in my life that I could go into another time, but not right now. But yeah, I mean, I started reading sacred texts when I was just before I started college, maybe like 18 or so. And then that's all I read. Like literally like 95+% of the books I've read, probably like 99% of the books I've read since then have just been different religious texts. And kind of in the beginning, so if I was where you were at, I don't know you too well, obviously, but if you're saying like, yeah, I don't really feel anything with Christian world, like I only think it's cool in terms of like Gnostic stuff. Yeah, I think that in the beginning you really have to like do the survey. You have to do a survey. Like if I was you, I would try and read a book from each religion, even though that seems like heretical or weird advice. That's really what I would do, because it's only by flexing that part of your brain that is trying on different religious worldviews that you can see what you think. That's also part of it. It's kind of like if your eye doesn't go into different levels of light, it loses that ability to dilate and it can't adjust itself. I feel like the spiritual worldview part of your brain is like that. You come from a natural perspective and you carry all this view from your childhood and what you think about things and your own biases that incline you towards X, Y, and Z. And I think personally, it's only by sitting down and saying like, oh, well, here's this tradition. What's this tradition's view? Here's this tradition. Let me see what this tradition's view is. Here's this tradition. What's this tradition's view? And by trying those on, it's like you flex the muscle in your mind that is the systemic worldview muscle. And after trying on a few robes, you can see what kind of robes you want to wear, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean, I don't mean robes, like, those are really poor use of words, because I don't mean like go join a monastery, but yeah, back in the day, man, I would take a period and read a bunch of Hindu stuff. I'd take a period and read a bunch of Buddhist stuff. I took a period and read excerpts from the Quran. I was like, what's up with this stuff? Shamanism. Like, I think if you feel that way, if you're like, I don't really feel any connection to Christianity at all, you should just see what a bunch of different worldviews have to say, and that's really the only way you can see what you think, in my opinion. You should read the Gospel of Thomas, by the way. If you feel that way, you should check out the Gospel of Thomas. It might be fake, but it's not really relevant to your purposes right now anyway, if it's fake or not, so you should check that out. Also, cults of Mary are interesting. Yeah, if you want some book recs, hit me up, man. If that person I'm talking to, his name's Philip Rory. If you want any book recs, hit me up. I can recommend some like 101 like reading stuff. There's also a book list on my site. Not that I like know, but I think I know what books are good to read if you're kind of like floating and you part of your path is going to be doing the spiritual buffet. I think I could probably recommend you some stuff. Bhagavad Gita is good to read. It's hard to pick a Buddhist book. The Tao Te Ching is really good. You should read that. You should try on a few glasses, and that's the only way you can see what glasses you want to wear. Issues the Pope under Pope Benedict. There was an attempt to appoint right and left wingers. Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I really do want to go into that, actually, but I'm not going to go into it right now. I don't know enough about it, but that's what I'm reading about right now. I was actually reading Vatican I and Vatican II before I paused, and I had to like take a break, so it was really dense. But my goal is to read Vatican II in its entirety. I've already read like half of it. I've already powered through like the really dense parts, kind of. All right, cool. I feel pretty good about that. I think we should wrap it up. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes right now. That was really dope. I talked about the painting a little bit. Style was cool, just like an experiment. I like to get that vibe out there that you can just like paint and do experiments, and it doesn't really matter how they turn out. I think people naturally feel they can like dick around on instruments and like play around on an instrument, because when you just pick up a guitar and noodle around, there's not like a physical record of it. That music you make just dissipates into the air and goes away, and no one ever has to hear it again. But when you paint or draw, if you do something that like you don't like, it's just sitting there looking at you and it makes you feel bad. Don't let that feeling hold you back. You could just get rid of it or throw it away, or don't throw it away, actually. Put it in a folder and like store it away somewhere. Later when you get good, you'll look back at it and be like, wow, I've improved so much. But yeah, don't let that hold you back. Honestly, if you're just starting doing art, which is the goal, or drawing or anything, you're going to have to do like 100, 200, 300 things that don't look good. So yeah. That's the goal there. Otherwise, the book stuff was really tight. I'm going to do another stream on Saturday, maybe Friday or Saturday, like quarantine style, where we look at some more art. I like the format of just chilling and like looking at art. It's less like focused, so those videos end up being really long. It's really like a live stream thing. Check that out if you want. And yeah, man, I really, honestly, I love doing this. I really love it. It feels like I'm hanging out with you guys. I know like we're kind of like hanging out digitally, but yeah, man, I really love that people are into it. It's really awesome. If anyone wants any advice, hit me up. I'm going to do a stream eventually about what tools you should get started, because I realized when I did the first stream about materials, to get all that stuff, you'd have to drop like $300, $400, $500. So I'll do a stream about like beginner materials and ways you can get cheaply started. Feel free to hit me up if you want any advice on like what to get or like what to do in that department. Send me stuff if you're making it. Otherwise, thanks a lot for checking this out. I really appreciate it, and I love hanging out online with you guys. And I will catch you online, because we're all quarantined, so we're all kind of slumber partying digitally style. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking it out. I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later.